Okay, I'd like to call a meeting to order. Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Kyle, could you put up the flag? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
flag
to the republic for which
to the
stands
republic for which it stands, one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. I think I'm on a little bit of a delay, so I might still be saying that, so just hold on. Okay, is there any public comment at this time? Written request only. I did not receive any written requests. I don't know if the chief or deputy chief has.
We have
No
not.
written
No.
requests? Okay.
No.
Nope.
Okay, approval of regular meeting on May 20th, 2020. Just raise your hand and state your name for the record. Okay, I have a motion.
Kyle, I make the motion.
Motion by Kyle.
Second.
Second by Dave Bitzel. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
aye,
Opposed? Abstention so carried, 5-0. Approval of special meeting on May 13, 2020. Just raise your hand and state your name for the record.
John Duke.
John Duke.
Make a motion.
Dave Bitzel.
Dave Bitzel, seconded. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
aye,
Opposed? Abstention so carried. Thank you very much, 5-0.
You put an L on it again.
What's that?
Put an L on it again.
Okay. Approval of special meeting on May 14th. Raise your hand, state your name for the record.
Kyle.
Kyle
Dave.
made the motion, Dave Bitzel seconded. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
aye,
Opposed? Abstention so carried, 5-0. Approval of minutes on May 21st. I think that's the one we're on now. Raise your hands.
aye,
Motion by Tom,
Second. Dave.
second by John. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
aye,
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. 5-0. Approval of special meeting on May 26, 2020. State your name. Raise your hand. John Duke.
Aye. Yep.
I'll second it.
And-
Tom Bennett,
And second, Dave Bitzel. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. 5-0. Did you get all that, Caroline? Wonderful. Okay, management report, Chief.
Yes, Chief Sikowski's reporting. Good evening, everyone. I guess I'll start off with the budget stuff like I normally do. June, we're trying to close out the end of the year budget. As you know, there still is a budget freeze on. But I've been working with the finance director, the board of finance chairman, as well as the first selectman to try to bring our budget to a resolution and close that out for the year. Currently, 3 accounts are potentially could be in the red, but we'll see what the final numbers are at the end of June, and then we'll make those adjustments and speaking with them at the July meeting. And we might have to do some transfers. First account will be the 112, the supers account. And the next one would be probably the overtime account. It's the busiest time of year. Officers are using their time before June 30th. And we always see a spike in the overtime at that point. So we're probably gonna have to do a transfer. And then repairs and maintenance, we might be a couple of grand over in that budget account. And then again, we'll see where we end up and then make those final adjustments. Current budget scheduled for 2021. That has been approved and passed by the Board of Finance. Later this afternoon, I sent the board the latest sheets from the Board of Finance. So the new budget beginning July 1st, we're scheduled to receive $4,282,281. There's been some accounts that have been cut and shaved back from the Board of Finance, but overall we'll make that budget work like we always do. In the contingency fund, what I'm told, they took one deputy chief's salary and moved it to contingency. What does that mean? That means that currently there's still a budget freeze and a hiring freeze from what I am being told. That will remain in effect until further notice, until the town, even with the new budget, until they get a handle on how this COVID thing really affects the town, the taxpayers paying their taxes, what income comes in. So they took that deputy chief salary account that we currently have and moved that to contingency. And if and when the board decides to do something with that position, then we'll have to ask for that money to be transferred back to that account. I believe that's an important position, especially in light of everything that's going on. And hopefully we could have further discussion on that about backfilling that position. The other position that we currently do not have is a parking attendant. That person resigned back in January, February timeframe. And then due to the COVID, we never replaced it. So that would be another position we would be looking to backfill. Again, I'll have to have discussion with the Board of Finance and the Finance Director and the First Selectman. Hopefully they'll let us backfill that position as businesses and everything open up. Obviously, the traffic downtown is going to increase. And I believe we would need to do some in that area. Projected income, I've been reporting the last couple of months, we did not meet that target and we won't meet that target. And that's mainly due to the administrative fees that due to private duty assignments that we were not able to bring in, as well as the parking fines. Like I said, downtown business is closed, as well as other parking violations just did not happen. So overall, we'll be short in our projected revenue that we were supposed to bring in by, right now it's $23,651.99. I'm hoping 2021 year will be a better year for us, as seen an increase in our admin fees as well as parking fees. And one area we'll see probably an increase are pistol permits. Everything in light of what's going on, there's been a great influx of people here seeking applications. So we'll probably see an increase in that line item in the future. Other things to report. We've been monitoring the reopening of the state. Obviously, the cities and towns, they open May 20th. And we've been monitoring that as businesses and everything opens up. We really have not had any complaints, so we're doing pretty good in that area. The Memorial Day parade around town went very well. It was a great show of support for the veterans, and everyone did a good job. All departments, EMS, fire, police, as usual, working together to honor our veterans who are so deserving of that. A while back, we approved scholarships for the high school. I was told by the guidance counselors at the high school about a week or so ago that there were no applicants for those scholarships. So therefore, we will not be issuing the money that we set aside for that. We're currently working with the Board of Education on trying to finalize plans for their graduation. I know they're throwing different ideas around. Again, the governor's order limits a certain amount of people through the executive orders. We're trying to work around all that. We're hoping maybe something could happen at the governor's level where those numbers get increased, that people could attend. If not, they're looking at several options. I believe I have a meeting Monday with Director of Security and the school staff to discuss further on that. Recently, a task force was put together. Like many departments in cities and towns, we've seen an influx of vehicle break-ins and thefts. To combat some of that, a task force was put together between our Detective Bureau patrol personnel as well as personnel from the State Police Auto Theft Task Force. One night they converged on a town. They flooded the neighborhoods to try to obviously combat those thefts. in those break-ins. They did a great job doing that, and we hope to do more of that in the future to try to hold the people responsible for those deaths. Citizens Academy, we were not able to hold in the springtime. We're hoping to do something maybe in the fall time in that area. So again, all depending on how the COVID crisis lays out. We're shooting basically for the September timeframe. Our Youth Academy that we normally have held, we're not able to do that because of the same situation. However, we're trying to research possibly other programs for the youth or community. I'll be having further discussion with my staff on that to see maybe what we can do, and to maybe still bring those programs to the youth. One thought process is something maybe through Zoom or another format, but I know with the online learning, I read some comments online, I think with Seymour Moms or some other places that, there's been talk about the kids getting tired of online learning. And so, that's something we'll have to see how that plays out. Let's see, Memorial Day weekend, we had reports of a homicide suspect that was possibly in our town. We quickly deployed additional personnel as far as and resources to start looking for that individual in conjunction with Derby Police, State Police, and other law enforcement officials. And that went on for several hours. It was a very intense situation there for a period of time, and until we found out that obviously the individual left our state and went south, which kind of gave us all a relief in that area. And one officer within the last month received treatment for an eye injury, however, did not miss work and returned to work immediately. One officer is currently out on workman's comp for a leg injury. Two officers that were out for different reasons have now returned to duty. One officer is still out. We had two minor motor vehicle accidents, which resulted in a little damage to our vehicles by the officers. And we also received one civilian complaint filed against an officer that is currently being reviewed and investigated. And the last thing that I have here is George Floyd. Obviously, we're all aware of the incident that happened on May 25th in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in which resident George Floyd succumbed to injuries at the hands of law enforcement. This has caused a lot of turmoil throughout the country, throughout the state. It was abhorrent conduct and behavior that we just cannot support. No one in law enforcement could support that conduct or that incident in any way, shape, or form. I found it imperative to write a letter to the Seymour community to discuss how I believe many people felt here, as well as the Seymour community, in regards to that situation. And I don't know if anybody had a chance to see that letter or read that letter. I have it in front of me. I don't know if you want me to enter it into the record, but I did post it on our Facebook page to the community to express our disgust and outrage about what happened in that situation. On the heels of that, we had a meeting today. The Four Valley Chiefs of Police, along with the mayors and first selectmen of each town, met with Greg Johnson, who is the director of the local Valley NAACP. There was good dialogue and conversation about how do we move forward from this incident in each and every one of our communities. And there will be more coming from that. Like I said, it was great dialogue amongst everybody there, good conversation. And in the future, we're probably going to be looking to build on that, possibly have community forums, additional trainings, and open up that dialogue further with the communities involved. I believe that's it. I'm not sure if you want me to read that letter into the record or Chair or.
If you would like to read it in the record, you could.
Okay. So again, on behalf of the Seymour Police Department, I believe all the men and women that work here, the Board of Police Commissioners, as well as the town residents. I wrote this letter June 1st, and it's to the Seymour community. Last Monday, George Floyd, a resident of Minneapolis, Minnesota, died while in the custody of Minneapolis police. Please rest assured that we, the men and women of the Seymour Police Department, do not condone the action of the officers involved. The video that we all have seen multiple times in the news media is unfathomable. Just like each of you, we are appalled and profoundly disgusted with the actions or lack thereof of the police officers involved with this situation. To each of us, it is incomprehensible that a human life was lost in the fashion and manner that we have seen. There is no place in society, let alone in law enforcement, where this incident should have occurred. These officers were to protect and serve their communities. Instead, they failed in the most egregious way possible. These rogue officers must be dealt with immediately, swiftly, and be held accountable for their acts of injustice. However, we must not let the actions of few officers in the law enforcement profession define who we are. Seymour Police Department has worked hard to foster and build a partnership with our community. We have and will continue to serve as guardians of the community. There are great officers in the Seymour Police Department and other law enforcement officials that come to work on a daily basis. These officers protect and serve their communities with dignity, honor, and pride. No matter the circumstance, we promise we will continue to do so on a professional, ethical, and moral standard. In closing, the death of George Floyd has been tough for all of us to watch. His death should have never occurred as it did, and it is incumbent on each of us to ensure this never happens again. Our condolences, thoughts, and prayers go out to Mr. Floyd's family, friends, and community. We all feel the anguish and pain with the death of George Floyd. However, we must not let this divide our community or nation. I realize public trust in law enforcement has been compromised. However, we must continue to work together, build relationships, and foster partnerships to find solutions to prevent these actions from occurring again. I am confident we can do this together in a peaceful and safe manner. On behalf of the men and women of the Seymour Police Department, we look forward to being a part of the change for the betterment of our Seymour community and nation. The letter is signed by me, Chief Paul Setkowski. This, like I said, is going to change the way law enforcement operates from this point forward. I'm sure many of you have been watching the news. There's already legislation proposed. I believe this legislation is going to move swiftly and very quickly, and you're going to see probably changes within the next couple of months through our legislator as well as throughout the nation. And we're going to continue to monitor the situation and stay abreast of everything that's occurring. And I'm sure there's going to be further discussion, like I said, forums and training and so forth to go along with these changes. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any board members have any questions of the chief, just raise your hand and state your name. John Duke?
All right, John Duke, good evening, Chief. Thank you for writing that letter, first of all. I thought that was very good, and it really spoke to how we all feel. Just a quick question. I was contacted through a third party by a student's, a friend of a student's family who said that they had contacted you with, they were looking to, I don't know, petition the governor about the graduation procedure. And they felt that they, to use their words, had the door closed in their face. Is there any particular reason why we didn't offer any guidance on maybe what we could have done or help them do in order to get them pointed in the right direction as far as how they should have worded their letter or any cooperation that they would have gotten from the department?
You were a little broken up there, but I did not receive anything about a letter. I was told through Board of Ed personnel that Mr. Freund was supposed to write a letter to the board on behalf of the Board of Education in the high school to the governor. I did not speak to anybody about writing a letter.
No, I believe the way it was explained to me was this student reached out to you for help in drafting the letter to the governor.
No, I did not have any conversation with any student. So
Okay,
I'm not sure where you received that information.
all right.
If we could talk offline, or I don't know where that came from. My
Yeah.
only discussions have been with Board of Ed personnel, Board of Ed members, as well as someone that personally called me who has a student graduating, and there was just discussion about how things kind of unfolded, but I didn't have any conversation with any students.
Just the one parent? Possibly last name Nelson?
Last name what?
Was Nelson?
No.
Okay.
No.
Dave Bitso, Chief, did you or the department offer to help with the process? To try and make things work with the governor? I mean, obviously, if they could have 500 people attending a fireworks display, we should be able to have a couple hundred people with the facility that we have at the high school be 15 feet apart. So I'm just asking if there was any offering of help to help them make that happen.
Again, I was never asked for any help in that area. There was discussion about, from what I understand, what I was told was the Board of Ed had a meeting. They instructed their principal to write a letter to the governor. Regardless of what the executive orders state, I received phone calls the next day after that meeting. And then I told them we would support whatever the governor's executive orders state, because our job obviously as law enforcement from day one with the COVID-19 crisis is to enforce the executive orders from the governor. And I told them we cannot violate those orders, so we'll support whatever those orders are and what they state we need to do. I had discussions with the Naugatuck Valley Health Director. I had discussions with the superintendent. I had discussions with the Director of Security. And we basically were all on the same page as far as that goes. And that's kind of the gist of those conversations.
Okay, my question was, why didn't we offer to try and help make it work, make it happen? But
I think we did, based on our discussions, and they basically said that they were working on their end. So I told them my door is always open, and I'm here. So and I did receive, like I said, a phone call from one of the board members, and we had discussions, and so. I think they had a meeting the other night, Monday night. Yes, Monday night. I was told there was a Board Ed meeting, and from what I understand, the board didn't really take any further action. And I think that's the meeting we're going to probably Monday with the director and principal and superintendent, et cetera. So.
Was Valley Health involved at all, or did somebody reach out to Valley Health regarding this?
Yes. Yes, I did mention that. There was conversations with Valley Health also, yes.
Okay. Did anybody reach out to Representative d.SRO, Claritas, for any help, also guidance? I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of discussions went on, but nothing really, there's no plan put together to try and make this work or make this happen. That's all I'm trying to get. I guess I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, so I think that would have to come from the Board of Ed. Our involvement is obviously providing security and safety for that event, and then we go over those logistics and plans. So again, it's the Board of Education that my only concern was obviously the executive orders that we're in charge of enforcing. And for Board of Ed members to say, we don't care what the governor's order states, obviously we have to. That's our job, to enforce those orders. We cannot violate those.
Not questioning that by any means. Just trying to do things.
But that's our discussions. So.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, it's Brian Leclerc from the Town Attorney's Office. There's a memo we just prepared this afternoon. The governor issued a new executive order last evening, and the DECD issued sector rules this morning that deal with graduations, which no one is probably familiar with. If you want me to take 30 seconds, I could tell you, if it helps the commission, what the new rules are fresh off the press. for
Yeah,
graduation.
please do.
As of July 1st, outdoor gatherings will be limited to 100 people in size. However, there's a one-time exception for graduations where you can have groups of 150 people outside for a graduation. Other than that, it requires people to remain in the cars right now if you're going to do one with one family at a time getting out. However, the governor's announced that, to follow DECD guidance, Department of Economic Community Development, and their sector rules. Their new sector rules they released today indicate that by mid-July, we will have graduations of 250 people occurring, or we can have graduations of 250. So there've been some significant relaxation of actual in-person graduations in the last 20 hours or so.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, Kyle.
this is, I understand the question that Commissioner Duke had, if somebody had reached out, but I mean, ultimately, this doesn't have much to do with us for this meeting, I don't think. And I think we're kind of going more than what it started at. So I'd like to just move on. The ultimate decision doesn't lie with us, right? The police department, I'm sure, is on board to help out where they can. But,
Right.
So-
I was just they're questioning the lack of
Right.
guidance and cooperation. That's
No, understandable. As far as everything else, I mean, we don't dictate, how we have gatherings. So,
I don't think anybody was trying to do that, Kyle. I think we were just trying to understand why there wasn't more cooperation with everybody to put a plan together to try and get things to get done. I know it's not our decision, but I guess you're right. We spent enough time on this.
Well, if I may, there have been several discussions, and listen, we always help everybody out the best we can, and we will continue to do so. And my office or anybody has never turned anybody away asking for help. So, we'll continue to do what we have to do. So.
Okay, on that issue, I'd just like to say, Chief, if you could possibly contact the Board of Ed saying that whatever decision they make, and if they do want to go with some sort of graduations outside, that we would have the security available for them, so that they know, at least on our side, that we will have the security available for them. And just go a little further, possibly the Board of Ed could consider, instead of having one graduation day, having 2 or possibly 3, if you could have 150 people at the same time, and maybe the Board of Ed, and like Kyle said, this is really a Board of Ed's decision to make, and if the Board of Ed so chooses, so be it. But they could have 1 or 2, or wait until July where they could have up to 250. I believe there's about 160 or 100. Well, thanks.
Ouch, that hurt.
Are you there?
yeah,
can
we're
hear you,
here.
Mr. Chairman.
Just
Yes, we're here.
so the board knows too, I know there's some question about working together. The town has a group together that have been meeting. And last I heard on our last department head meeting on Thursday, Chief, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but there is some plan already in place to that they were talking about having 3 or 4 different sessions outside, something along those lines. So there is plans. There has been progression.
Yes, there have been plans. Those plans are changing because, I guess there's people that aren't happy with those plans. So it's a work in progress, and I believe more will be shed on this Monday's meeting when I meet with the school personnel.
Okay, are there any other questions concerning this or any other issue for the chief? Okay, hearing no other questions, we'll go under commissioners' comments. Kyle, do you have any comments?
Just to start, I would just like to, commend the men and women of the Seymour Police Department for being out there doing their jobs every day in light of everything that's going on. Obviously, it's not a tough job, I think I speak for everybody to say that, we know the men and women are out there doing the best they can, doing it the right way, keep it up and keep your heads high.
Thank you, John. Did you have any comments?
Yes, just one. I was just wondering what the board's feelings and the chief thought about bringing back the community police officer position in light of everything that's going on right now and with the current state of law enforcement. If it would be a good idea to try to reintroduce that and try to build some bridges and help out within the community, especially with our elderly population and maybe some folks who are new in town and might have come from other areas where they didn't have very good experiences. Wondering what the feelings on that are. I know it's been a while since we've had that position.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll place that on the table later on in the meeting, John, and discuss that. Because for us to discuss and possibly even act on that, we have to place it on the table because it's not on the agenda. So I'll do that later on in the meeting. Okay, John?
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Dave, do you have any questions?
None at this time.
Okay, Tom, do you have any questions?
Yeah, and I got a bunch of them. I bet you everybody's going to hate me by the time I'm done.
That's all right.
The first thing I want to discuss is the monthly reports we get before the meeting. Is there any way we could get them prior to, instead of getting the day before the meeting or 2 days before the meeting? Because for me, if I'm busy those days before, I don't have a chance to review them. So it looks like they're monthly reports that are completed by the end of the month, May. Is there any way we can get them a day or two after they're completed so they can have time to kind of digest them and read them a little bit?
Oh,
I agree.
Dave.
I agree with you, Tom. We should be getting them, and this was a big concern with the last board also, not getting them in a timely manner. It has nothing to do with Caroline. She gets them to us as quickly as she gets them. It's up to the supervisors, and they do have basically a little over 2 weeks to get them on time to us, and we should get them at least by Friday of the before our Wednesday meeting. So at least we have the weekend and a few days to review them. Like today, we just got the third shift report, which is totally late. Today's the 17th, and we just got the third shift report today. And this is something the chief and deputy chief have to get on whoever makes out these reports to make sure that they're done on a proper time and that we get them by at least Friday prior to our Wednesday meeting.
Commissioner Kotzebue.
Okay, Tom, you continue.
Chairman
Yes.
Kotzebue, Deputy Chief Rinaldi here. Yes, I know about the third shift. I came in late. I will speak to the commander from that third shift and get it in a more timely fashion.
I will say the first 3 or 4 years when I was on the board, we used to, they say it delivered to my house every Friday, the Friday before, every week like clockwork. And it seems like in the last year or so, that's kind of hasn't been happening. So at least I had the weekend to look through it. I know what you're saying, Tom. Getting it on Monday leaves a lot, doesn't leave a lot of time to go through it and digest it all.
Commissioner Bitzel, Deputy Chief Rinaldi here. I'll take care of that.
And Deputy Chief, if that's a problem, maybe we should talk about changing the reporting time frame. So maybe, instead of ending the report on the 30th of the month, maybe we'll end it, if it'd help you guys, let's end it the week before the end of the month. And if that gives you more time to get the information to us. I'm not trying to be unreasonable. It's just, it's tough when you get a budget report the day before to kind of look at it and make heads or tails of it. So.
Okay, I don't think it's an issue of when at the end of the month and getting within the 3 week or prior to your commission, at least the Friday before. But I will address it. I will take care of that.
Okay. Thank you. How about the evaluation status? Where do we stand with that? Is there any proactive stance taken on that? Have we put a time frame when it's going to be implemented? Have any evaluations been written yet?
Chief Sakowski, not at this time. It was my understanding when that was passed a month or two ago that I think we set a time frame of August, September, October timeframe when those would be completed and submitted. So in light of everything that's going on, the COVID and now this other situation, you know, and I'm going to be quite busy, honest with you, you know, being only 2 administrators, we're down an administrator, we were down another a person that helped the administration. And we're operating at like 50% for like the past 3.5, 4 months. So obviously we're not as efficient as we like to be, but we're going to try to make improvements in those areas as you're requesting. But that was my understanding of when those would be completed, August, September timeframe. So.
Okay. All right. And now I'm going to go to the obvious recent events that have been happening. So have you or the deputy chief reviewed your use of force policy?
Go ahead, Bob.
No, if you want to go ahead, Chief, you can go. All right, go. Yes, Commissioner Bennett, we have. We are up to date on our use of force policy. We mirror the state policy. I believe in our present duty manual, I think there's some stuff missing, so we're probably gonna have to update that. But right now, I just sent in all the standards to the state. They're reviewing it. I'm just waiting for something back from the state that everything's fine. But right now, we are up to date on everything. And I believe the chief knows that they're going to be making some changes. So I believe something down the road is going to come out where it's going to be a different policy. Stricter.
Okay.
So as of Friday, the Post-C Council had a meeting and they passed a new set of standards for use of force. Those just came out, I believe, Monday. And that's going to change, obviously, that policy quite drastically across the board, both at the state and municipal level. And we're going to have to obviously start revising and some of that. So to meet what Post-C has passed. And then you're probably going to see further legislation whenever the legislators go back in session. And it's unknown at this time what they're going to approve. But I know there's a preliminary report that was just released, I believe, Monday or yesterday. And there's like 20 recommendations that's going before the Police Task Force and Accountability Board. That was formed from a 19-90 Public Act. They met once or twice, and but obviously this incident brought it to the forefront, and they've had several meetings within probably the last week or two. And there's further information coming out with that as to how law enforcement is probably going to be moving forward in the state of Connecticut and probably beyond even the national level. But obviously this task force accountability for police officers is for Connecticut. So right now there's 20 recommendations. And I will say to the board, and I'm probably going to hopefully give you the information, but the President's 21st Century Task Force report, that was a report that came out after the Ferguson, Missouri incident. In 2014, President Obama put together a task force. I don't know how many board members are familiar with that. I know I've mentioned it several times over the past several years, and I don't know if anybody had the opportunity to read it. I know I told my supervisor several times, but anyways, that shaped where law enforcement headed in the last 3 to 5 years. But that came to the forefront again just last week or the last 2 weeks with President Obama bringing it up and other individuals. And a lot of those 20 recommendations that I just talked about, a lot of that is listed in that report from that 21st Century Task Force report. So I hope to maybe either scan it in or send a link to everyone, not only in the department, but obviously the commissioners. And I think that's an important document for everyone to read, and you'll get a better understanding of where law enforcement has come in the last 3 to 5 years. And obviously they're looking to build on that and then reshape that report. And you're probably going to see another report come out probably from this incident and building on that. So.
All right, and I kind of don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'm sure that's going to be a policy update in the manual, which I think down the road at some point, I'm going to have questions about how we're updating the policy and making sure that the officers have a current version of that policy, so there's no issues. So how about have you guys met with the officers in the department personally, either a roll call or other type of training, or directed the supervisors to review the use of force and defensive tactics policies with your officers?
You want me to go?
Yeah.
So Chief Sekowski speaking, we met with some of the officers. We went over some stuff with them. As I mentioned last month, we sent some supervisors to additional training. They went to IA school where they discussed a lot of these issues, use of force, and some of the topics that we're currently facing. But obviously there's more work to be done, and you know, we have more training to do and to get up to up to speed a little better on some of those issues. But we did meet with the officers and went over the situation that's occurred before us. We had some discussions, and I know Deputy Chief, I think, caught the midnight shift and had some discussions with the officers.
Commissioner Bennett.
Thanks. I'm sorry, go ahead, Deputy Chief.
Deputy Chief Rinaldi here. Yeah, down the road, we want to probably try to do some more training on that. But that'll be down the road.
Okay. Again, I ask these questions. I think discussion is good, and definitely whenever these incidents happen, personally, I would like to see a review of the policies, and especially now, I think it's very important that there should be a review at roll call with everybody on your defensive tactic restraint techniques, what's proper and what's not proper to use, especially if they're going to be changing here in the near future. I think the officers should know that the amount of force that they're going to be allowed to use. On that note, when was the last time you guys had defensive tactics training and or restraint training?
Deputy Chief Rinaldi here. It's been a while that I could recall. I think it's been a while.
What would be a while? 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years?
I'm going to say probably several years. Yeah, let's say it's been a while.
So I would say that that's an area that we should probably address then. Correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So handcuff training, I'm going to assume is the same.
Yes, sir.
Baton training the same.
Yes, sir.
How about capstone training? All your officers up to date on capstone? Are they carrying non-expired capstone?
That was brought to my attention recently. We do have some issues with that, and it's going to be addressed. Okay.
So the pepper spray we carry, we issued new ones, I think 2 years ago. I thought there was a 5-year span on that. So if someone has expired, they shouldn't have expired because we have current canisters, if you will. So that's, they might have just got one that's mixed up in the batch that shouldn't be, but we're looking to purchase obviously newer stuff as our supplies get depleted, and then obviously we would redo the training there. So I think within the last 2 years we have done that.
Okay, how would you guys catch the fact if there was expired capstone out there? Like, how would you know if somebody was carrying expired capstone?
Other than
I'm not aware of anybody doing that, but if the deputy chief received info, then so last time we had a couple of years back, we pulled all the expired ones. Then when we found out they were expired, and we ordered a whole new batch, and then that batch is, like I said, it should be a 5-year shelf span on that. So I'm not sure how someone hasn't expired. So, but we'll review that and.
All right, Ed, so you guys don't do like a regular line inspection, like every 6 months or a year on your officers, just to make sure their equipment's in proper working order if the supervisor doesn't review that?
It's usually supervisor, individual supervisors that we rely on them to do that. So we'll have to obviously check to see if that's occurring. I know some supervisors have done that and have inspected their people, and and I believe some issues were corrected with other issues, not that issue, but other issues were corrected through those inspections. So,
okay.
We'll have to reinforce that. Absolutely.
Not trying to be critical here, but I think we got to identify areas of weakness that needs to be addressed so that, God forbid, we're ever faced with a horrible situation, that our policies and rules are being followed exactly, and our equipment is the latest and not expired. So moving on from that.
Commissioner Bennett for a minute, Deputy Chief.
Yep,
No,
go ahead.
we do have someone, like the chief says, some of the supervisors do inspect some of the equipment the officers have. One in particular did do a few inspections and did find some issues and were corrected. But we should do it on more of a daily basis. You are correct.
Yeah, I off the top of my head, I'm going to say it's in the policy manual, but I forget the timing of it, whether it's 6 months or annually. I'd have to go back and look. But also, how many shields do you guys have? Ballistic shields.
We have 2.
Okay. Do you guys feel as though you would need more than that?
I believe some of this has to do with security and safety and officer safety. So I'm not sure if we should be discussing what resources we have in public. So if you want to discuss offline or an executive session or something, but I'm a little leery to state exactly what we have and what's available, et cetera, due to officer safety and security reasons.
Okay. Understandable. That may qualify for an executive session, but I think under freedom of information, that information have to be provided if somebody requested it from the public anyways. I see that Brian Leclerc is shaking his head no.
Safety and security is a different topic, and I believe, but I'll let Attorney Leclerc.
Yeah, there are exceptions to the Freedom of Information Act requirement for disclosure, and that is one of the exceptions. If someone is asking for information or documents regarding, for instance, weapons that the department has, number of officers, how they're deployed, policies for handling anything from a hostage to a sniper situation, any of that information, where you store your extra ammunition, does every car have a shotgun, rifle, tear gas in the trunk? Those are kind of questions you do not have to disclose to the public because there is no compelling public interest in that, as it affects not only the safety of the officers, but the entire community. So if you want that information, I would suggest you go into executive session where the meeting is not recorded and the public doesn't participate, and the chief could tell you all about that.
Okay. Just goes along with my training questions to make sure that if we do have that equipment, that people are trained in the use of that. Let's see here. How about a training committee? Do we have a training committee or a training officer for the department?
A training committee, the training officers are currently the deputy chief.
Okay. In last couple questions here, bias training, department up to date on the bias training.
Yes, officers, when they go to the research classes, they get that.
That's taken care of there. Research is done there. All right. And then the last thing that I have, I know policy manual talked about a citizen survey. I don't know if that's something that's ever pertained to Seymour. Has anything like that ever been done? Just curious to see, what the public or what the citizens of Seymour had to say if that survey was ever done.
To my knowledge, this survey has never been done.
Okay.
So, addressing some of your concerns, in the past two budgets, I put under the capital budget plan to potentially bring in a person that handles all this. Obviously, they're like a consultant. They would review all our policies, all our, procedures. And obviously, there's a fee to that. I put that in the budget the last 2 years under the capital, like I said. I think it's an imperative. I brought it to the board. We had discussions on it, but we never did anything with it. Obviously, a lot of it's monetary. But I think now is a good time to bring it up and see if that's something we could do. It's like a 2-year process. The individual and group would come in. They would review all our policies, procedures. They look at the duty manual. They basically rewrite the duty manual. And when all those policies, procedures are upgraded, we basically get accredited, state accreditation. That's all part of this process. That's part of the process that Post is pushing for, Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3 state accreditation. I think it's money well spent for the town. And when everything's in place, we'll be an accredited department. And hopefully that will save us. And then obviously that group monitors everything. So like now that there's changes at use of force, we call them, they basically write everything. They update our policies with us, and then we're right where we should be. So I think that's an imperative part of this, and I think it's an important piece moving forward that we review that again and potentially do something like that.
Well, just out of curiosity, what was the cost for that, to have that done?
So it's a 2-year process. I think the first year was between 10 to 15,000, and then obviously the second year is the same thing, 10 to 15 to 20,000. Obviously, so total it's probably between 30 and 35. Over a 2-year period, broken up, and I would have to touch base with that group again and see. See exactly how that would work, but that's the way it was explained to me when I first brought it to the board, and I had been budgeting it the past 2 years. So, but obviously it's been cut from the budget through the capital improvements, and because of the expense, that's where it went. But it's broken up over 2 years. You were probably looking at 10 to 15 each year, which. A lot of departments are heading towards this way. Chiefs that I talk to throughout the state are seeing the importance and the value of that, and that's where they're moving forward. So I think it's an important piece for us to review it and look at again.
I agree with you 100%. The policies here really need to be revisited. And listen, the second part of accreditation, though, is not only having the policies, is following the policies and doing what it says. When it says evaluations, we gotta have the evaluations in there. We just can't have it in the book. That type of stuff has to be done. Same thing with training. When it says annual training needs to be done in restraint techniques and defensive tactics, it just can't be in the book. We gotta follow the book, and we gotta do it. And I think we gotta have a jump off point as a board. We gotta decide what we're gonna do with this policy manual to get it up to date. I'm set for questions. I thank everybody for their patience.
Any other board members have any questions? I just want to follow through Commissioner Bennett's, some of his comments about training and so forth. One of the issues I think could be easily resolved, because I believe the administration doesn't know exactly when certain the canisters when they're expired and so forth. Wouldn't it be very simple if each commander of each shift wrote down each personnel on that shift and when any of their equipment is expired, when the expiration date is, and then get a master list to the deputy chief so that he can follow through. So when individuals change shifts, that we always know when something is expired. I think that would be an easy solution to that problem. But that's something that the deputy chief and the chief should look into, trying to resolve this as quickly as possible, because I think this is very important. A lot of the questions Mr. Bennett came up with are very important, especially in the training and so forth. Any other comments from the board members? I just have one other comment. Dave, did you want to? Go ahead.
Let me just unmute myself. Yeah, I just wanted to get Chief. You mentioned earlier that the salary for the current vacancy of the deputy chief has been removed. Where did you say that was moved to? Was that moved to another line item within the department budget, or outside the department, outside of the PD's budget?
So I've been informed by the chairman of the Board of Finance, the finance director, and the first selectman, the money was moved to the town's contingency fund.
Okay, so it's outside of the Seymour PD
So,
fund then.
yes, but they have it earmarked still for that position, from what I'm told. And they said if and when we move to do something with that position, then the board would have to request that money to come back into our budget. And then they would make those adjustments, or obviously first have discussion on that, and then make those adjustments. So that's the way it's been explained to me.
All right, I just and I noticed some increases in salaries in the new budget proposal for some town people. So, okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, Chief, I have a question. I know back in 2019, we're looking to get a grant for the e-tickets for each of the vehicles, the equipment for that, and I believe the former deputy chief who retired recently was in charge of that. Why didn't we go through with that? Because that was over an $80,000 grant, and how come we didn't apply for it and get that?
We did apply for it. So the deputy chief was working with the people up in at the state level. They told him that he has, obviously, I guess their grants run from October to September. So that's the time frame we're on. So he left, and that's all part of this, our next gen project too, updating our software. So between, they were working with the older, still our vendor, but once we switch over, the former vendor, they were working with those personnel. And because of this switch over, that was kind of put on hold. But I believe that grant money has been applied for through the IT, either Rob Dyer and or Detective Matasovich. And I was informed about a week or so ago that went up there to be submitted for the vehicles. So that's a work in progress, and we're just waiting for the outcome. From what we're basically told is we probably will be approved for it. So that has been submitted, and now hopefully we're going to tie that in with our new, like I said, next gen software. So
yeah, my question, Chief, though, wasn't in this round. It was in last year's round of expenditures, and goes October 1st to September 30th. In that time frame, why didn't we get it in that time frame versus the time frame we're in now? Because that's when it was started.
yeah, right. So it's a yearly grant that they're trying to kick people
Yes.
over to. So again, because we started that other project, all that was put on hold to see which way the town went with that other project. And obviously you don't want to work with one vendor if you're going to be switching over to another vendor. So collectively, we had a committee on that project, the communication commission, if you will. And there was discussion there. And then obviously amongst ourselves, there was discussion to wait until we basically kick over to this new and incorporate everything together with the vendor we're going with. That's basically in a nutshell.
Okay. My last concern is off of Commissioner Bennett's, actually, when things expire. Unless you had the elevator service in the last week, it expired in November of last year. So I would hope that you would ask the town, whoever takes care of our elevators, they certify the elevator because it's not certified at this time.
I will check into that with the person that oversees the town buildings, but I'm pretty sure that was done last year, and I believe that's a 2-year certificate. So if the certificate's not in the elevator, that just could be a posting issue, but I believe it was inspected by the state and passed. But I'll review that and try to get answers.
Yeah, the certificate in the elevator says its expiration date is 2019. I believe November 2019. So just check into that so that we could get it serviced so nobody gets stuck in the elevator. We have to pay them overtime.
That's happened to us before.
Okay.
Specifically me, the chief, me and the
Okay.
former chief. But no, I'll
Oh,
check into that. That just might be a certificate issue. So that might be sent over at town hall, or I'm not sure, but I'll definitely check that tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief. Okay, going on to old business. First, I just want to bring up a couple things from our last meeting under old business. Number one is the update on the business cards for each of the police officers. What's the status on this at this point?
So the examples or drafts have been submitted to the vendor. I know Nadia spoke with them today. They're going to start making those cards. They had to review all the information for the officers. I believe that was done. And I believe those are being probably made as we speak. He's going to do one. He did one sample. We made a minor change with the color. And then I think that was addressed today. And hopefully within the next week, depends on how fast he can make them. But he's going to show us a new sample. And then if that's approved, then he'll start working on those. But the money has been
Okay, Chief.
For that.
Chief, it's the reason why I bring this up is this is like the third month of meetings now. We're talking about business cards. It sure doesn't take that long to look at get business cards. So please, can somebody get off their horse and get things done? I mean, it's not a big thing here. I mean, this should be done quickly, within a month, but this has been delayed. Okay, let me go on to the next one. Update on Bunting Road, the speeding on Bunting Road. Did the police department take any action on that? That was discussed at our last meeting.
Commissioner Chairman Kozlowski, Deputy Chief Rinaldi here. Yes, we did assign officers to run radar on Bunting Road.
Okay, thank you.
Offhand,
do you know if
go ahead.
You know, did that help the situation?
I haven't heard anything. I don't have anything in front of me right now. How many stops were made and what action was taken. And in the future, if you want, I can have that readily available for you folks.
No, this is Kyle. I can say I just happened to hear it one day. I did hear one of the second shift officers out there one night making several stops. So whatever the outcome was, there was some contact out there. So thank you.
Good.
Yes, because after the commissioner meeting, we did put it on the sheet to have it done periodically, along with the other requests for, I believe it was Great Hill and Botsford, and there was another street offhand, I can't recall.
On the heels of that, Chief Sarkowski, on the heels of that, we have deployed our radar trailer. You probably seen on Skokrat Street right now, but we're going to start moving that around various neighborhoods in different areas of town. So you'll see that also.
Okay, the reason why I brought that up too is because where I'm sitting right now, you can probably see a window behind me. Too bad it's too bright, or else I could show you how many people go through this stop sign. And I will tell you, every other car goes through this stop sign. Some don't even slow down. I understand some people slow down. I've asked repeatedly to have officers up here. I seen one officer last month up here. They spend a good 20 minutes up here, and that's all. And I'm outside most of the day now in the warm weather. They might be officers up here, but I don't see them. And this is one of the top 10 heaviest travel streets in the town of Seymour. And people are just blowing by this. I even asked 6:30 in the morning when two vehicles go blowing through this stop sign. At that time, 6:30 in the morning, I got up, looked, no police officers out here at 6:30 in the morning looking to see if they see these vehicles. So, I mean, I'm just asking you to concentrate and maybe do the sections of the town. Scoprat Street's very busy. County Road's very busy. South Main Street's busy. Pearl Street's busy. I mean, we're talking about the Mountain Road's busy. We're talking about the highest traveled roads in the town of Seymour. Pearl Street itself has almost 3,400 cars a day that goes on Pearl Street. So no sense putting up stop signs if we're not going to enforce them. The other issue I have is the server was brought up at the last meeting. We were having problems with the server. Has that been corrected?
There was discussion on
Somebody?
the, Chief Sadkowski speaking, there was discussion on potentially something wrong with our email system. I explained that process. I had discussion with the IT, and nothing could be done until, well, from what I was told, the town is replacing servers at different locations in town. And then obviously, once everything's kicked over to there, then I think they're going to review our email system and get us on a different system. That was, I believe, our discussion last month. But the town is investing. I think the Board of Selectmen approved $120,000 or something like that last night to buy new servers, what the IT director recommended. And then that's all part of what we need to do on our end. And that'll obviously save us money from buying our own individual ones. So it's all going to be incorporated into one project from what I'm being told.
Okay. Thank you. And the last one is, has the department taken any safety issues concerning the patrol pulling vehicles over, such as recommended at the last time, possibly putting, asking the individuals, the drivers, to put their license, registrations, and insurance card in a plastic bag that be furnished by us. The officers wearing rubber the gloves also, and if a ticket is given, returning that ticket in that plastic bag. Has the board did any safety issues concerning this? I mean, has the department not the board, the department?
Chairman, Deputy Chief Rinaldi here. Yeah, we did speak about it last month. I thought about it. I personally, I don't like the idea. Like I said, we informed the officers' approach from the passenger side. Look at the driver's license and the information they have. They go back to their cars. Now with the computers in the cars, you can get a picture of the person, etc. If they got an issue, ticket, just other than a summons, they, you know, if they got to sign off on it, just bring wipes with them and wipe down the pen when they're done with it.
Okay, as long as the safety issues are being taken.
Yes, sir. I mean, it was addressed. Again, if you feel differently, then we can talk off camera here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next on old business transfers. Chief, you have a couple transfers?
Yes, Chief Sadkowski speaking. So during the budget process, we requested 3 vehicles from the town during the budget process. Obviously, those were removed from the budget. As previous years, we were told that if there's any monies that were remaining, then we might be able to purchase some vehicles. With officers being out and workman's comp issues, we were able to have a remaining balance in the 110 account. We're looking to purchase 2 vehicles. In reviewing this situation and what monies we have left, we have enough for 2 vehicles. Again, speaking to the chairman of the Board of Finance and the finance director, they were in agreement to that, as discussed through the budget process with the Board of Finance. So I put together the packet to transfer. I believe it's right in front of me. Just let me get the paperwork. It's $98,500 from the 110 account. That's the salary account to the 745 account, and that will allow us to buy 2 vehicles and have those vehicles outfitted.
Is that the only transfer you have for tonight, Chief?
That's the only transfer, yes. As discussed previously in the meeting, it was agreed upon that once we close the budget out and if there's any other shortcomings in any other line items, all those will be addressed in the July meeting and do the transfers. And then we'll have the final figures. It'll be a one-shot deal, one and done. And the board, actually the Board of Finance and the Doug Thomas, that was their recommendation. We do it next month and then just close everything out. So it's
Okay.
that's the only transfer tonight.
Okay, what's the board's pleasure? Someone want to make a motion to do that transfer? The reason why I support this transfer is that it's taken us almost a year to get the new cars that we ordered a year ago. So we probably won't be getting these 2 new cars for another year anyways. So we should get them while we can. I think the vehicles are very important to the department and they should be updated as soon as possible. So what's the board's pleasure since we have the money in the budget?
I'll
Do I
make the
have a
motion. I'll make the
I'll make the
motion.
Motion by
Dave Bitzel
Dave Bitzel to
I'll second
transfer
it.
the money. Second
Yes,
by
sir.
Tom
Yep,
Bennett. Discussion?
I have something for discussion. 2 questions. One, Chief, that total 98,000, that's for the upfit also and the vehicle?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yep.
And the other thing, and I think we talked about this last time, I know there's some discrepancies in some of the vehicles. If we can make sure moving forward, all these new vehicles are outfitted and put together exactly the same, for redundancies for the rest of the officers. And, as we continue to get new vehicles, starting with these 3 that haven't yet been upfitted, take the other newest one and make sure everything's the same. I won't go into details, obviously, for officer safety, but where certain buttons are and all that kind of stuff.
Very good. Any other discussion on the transfer? Here, no other discussion. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried, 5-0. Next on the agenda is the ATV that was brought to us a couple times. What's the board's pleasure on the ATV?
This is Kyle. I'm still in the same position I was last time. I still support the idea of it. I see the benefits of it. Like for instance, right now, this Seymour Ambulance Polaris is out of service. I don't know how long it's going to be out of service. It's having some work done to it, so we're down that vehicle in town. That's my 2 cents. I support it. So that's all I have.
I'll speak next. Yeah, I still hold the same position I did at the last meeting, where a year or 2 ago I was 100% in favor of moving forward. But I think right now, with things the way they are, that vehicle is a lot of money, and I know we got $5,000 of free money, but to use that 5, we got to spend another 15. That vehicle is not going to get the use in the next year or 2 that it should get, and those kind of vehicles are not meant to sit around and not be driven, not be used. So I just think the timing's wrong right now. Not to say I wouldn't change my mind next year, but that's how I feel. I think Commissioner Duke made a comment. I'll let Commissioner Duke talk to it, but those vehicles are they're high maintenance and they need to be used. So,
Any other comments from the commissioners?
Where are we budget? I'm sorry, John, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
I just want to know, where are we budget-wise on that? I know there was some extra money left over in the budget, but now we're saying there's a fiscal freeze on. So how would that purchase be made anyways if there's a freeze on for spending?
I believe it would come out of a different fund. Is that correct, Chief?
Yeah, it would come out of, I believe, the seizure money or the community money.
We're looking to
Correct,
take it out.
Chief?
Yes, Chief Sadkowski, 5,000 will come from the town FEMA money that's been allocated for equipment for the next emergency. And then the remainder would come from the community fund is where we would plan to buy that purchase. So community fund.
And that community money, if it's not spent, goes back to the town fund?
No,
Oh,
no, that stays with us.
That community money stays,
Yeah,
yes.
that stays with us. We presently have $195,000 in that account.
all right. I think my position, if the money's there, I think I'd support buying it, but I think there has to be some caveats to that also. If there are some issues that wouldn't get used that much this year, that I guess we'd have to make sure that it does get used or driven a little bit, just to make sure that it's in good operating order. The time we need it isn't the time to find out we don't have it. That's my thought process on that.
Okay, any other board members have any comments?
Yeah,
Yes, John. You're on mute, John.
Right. Yeah, just speaking to that, I mean, I still kind of have the same position. I'm not really sold on it, especially with the limited use it's going to get right out of the gate. Speaking earlier, it sounds like we have a lot of training and equipment expenses that are potentially coming up here, and I just think we could use that money somewhere else for things we need right away. So I'm really not in favor of it at this point. But again, like Dave said, down the road when things start to happen again and the community events start, and I think it's a more justifiable expense. But for $5,000 of money that we could use elsewhere and not have to tap into anything we have in reserve, I'd rather see that money go towards training and equipment. That's just my opinion. Other equipment that's needed immediately.
Okay, my only comment is basically we have a list in front of us tonight to go over, equipment's list of about 15 or 16 items. And I see some on there that's a higher priority than ATV. So at this time, I couldn't support the ATV. I believe we should get one in the future when we're able to, maybe next spring to purchase it when things have calmed down from this virus. So if a board member wants to make a motion to purchase the ATV, which one would you like to purchase, and what are the prices, Chief?
So very quickly, it's really up to the board's decision, obviously, but timing might be bad again because of everything that's going on, and I kind of have to agree there. The only other thing I have to say is what Commissioner Bennett just said, and I said this last meeting, it's equipment that you want when you need it. So just an example, and it just happened, when we were up on the hilltop looking for a homicide suspect, and we had to deploy 2 ATVs to that area, and luckily they were offered to us. One from the ambulance corps, Chief Kelly, Commissioner Kelly offered right away, because he knew the situation we were dealing with, as well as Emergency Management Director Tom Amey. And I said, absolutely, get those up there as soon as you can, as fast as you can, because we did not know where that individual was. And obviously in the hilltop, you had the park, you had Geary Park, so you could cover a vast amount of ground where a regular vehicle and obviously quicker than foot traffic. So again, I think it's an important piece of equipment needed, but the timing might be off now with everything else going on, and I understand that, but I just wanted to bring that.
Thank you. Chief, which one would you recommend?
If I may,
Yes,
I mean,
Kyle.
sorry, it sounds like it wouldn't pass anyway, so I think it's kind of a moot point.
Okay.
We can
Did you
revisit
want
it
me to
later
move on
on.
then?
Yeah, I figure, with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, your decision, but I figure we can move on and revisit it at a later date.
Okay. So could I have a motion to table the ATV?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Kyle. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Tom Bennett. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? So carries. So we're tabling that purchase this time. Okay, update on equipment needed. There's a list that was given to us. Chief, do you have that list?
Yes, I received it late this afternoon. Yes, after our
Okay.
discussion, I received
Yeah,
it.
we just received ours also. So what would you think are the priorities on this list? It's a big list. I think number one would be, this is a security issue too. So maybe I'm not going to say that one then. Reusable taser targets is one. Cordless microphones for portables. Very expensive, $225 each times 35 officers.
So obviously some of this stuff we were looking to purchase, tourniquets, chairs and dispatch. We were reviewing that as administrators, right? So obviously with the budget freeze, and now that we kind of be given an okay to start purchasing stuff as we do to close the budget out. Like I said, I had conversations. There's certain thresholds they want to meet. We're going to try to meet those thresholds with them, as well as allowing us to buy equipment and stuff. So on this list, I think you got to really break it up into wants and needs. A radar unit, we've been purchasing radar units. I don't have a problem purchasing a radar unit. We have money for that. Chairs for dispatch, our officers are in there 24/7. We need to upgrade those. I don't have a problem with any of that.
What did you, excuse me, Chief, what did you say about the radar units?
I'm recommending purchasing one at this time. And,
Okay.
we'll
One?
see. I think we should set a priority list, and then as start closing the budget out, what monies I have, we can make work just like we do every year, and purchase what we can, and hopefully the town will approve these purchase orders. But I'm looking at everyday usable stuff. I mean,
yes, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
We talked about the drone. We put that on hold several years ago because of legal liability reasons. So I think we should put that on hold. Some of this, other stuff, 10 to 12,000. I mean, it comes up on occasion, but I think we should just prioritize, get whatever we can. The cordless microphones. I mean, that started off with the 2 K9 officers, but now it seems like everybody wants those. They have the ones that were supplied by the town, and they have cords on them. Yes, I understand that, but I don't think that's a priority right now. If they break, we replace them, and then we go from there. So the K9 bite suit, I mean, if they need that for training, by all means, we'll get that. We'll wipe out that K9 account. I think there's only like $100 something left, and then we'll get the remainder from the 740 account. So. Some of these I don't have a problem with. The flashlight chargers, if they're broken, we have some up here. We have to get them replaced. We'll purchase them. So I think if we go through this list, we could get as much as we can. Thermal imaging, I think we have some downstairs. They really don't get used that often, but if they feel there's a need, we can review that again. So. Like I said, I just got this list probably around 4:30 this afternoon. So, radar unit, absolutely. Chairs, absolutely. But understand those chairs are expensive. Don't quote me on them, but they're not your normal $200 chair. They're probably $1,000 or better. So I mean, just understand the cost of
Do they go?
You know,
No, I'm not going to say that. Never mind.
but so.
Okay, give us, hey,
I
Chief,
wouldn't
just tell us, because under the charter, we're responsible to purchase equipment. So tell us what equipment on this list you would like us to make a motion and purchase. So go through the list one more time for us.
Well, again, radar units.
One
absolutely.
radar unit.
If we have money, we could buy two, but we won't know that
Okay.
until we prioritize and then see where
Okay.
our monies are and reviewing stuff at the end, like we always do. So,
2 chairs,
2 chairs, yeah, I don't have a problem. with
K9 bite suit.
that. K9 bite suit, absolutely.
Okay, what else? Rifle straps,
What's that?
rifle
I mean,
straps.
those are, first I'm hearing we need them. So if we need them, I'll review with the firearms people and, see what they are. I'm sure they're not that expensive overall, but, we have a certain amount of them and, we can get those. Tourniquets, like I said, those were things we were looking at. So those are probably a couple grand.
Tourniquets.
So the drone I recommend putting on hold, the Celebrite. The gear at the bottom, I don't want to, I like to say crowd management and, protective gear. I mean, that's things we have to start looking at. And
Which one?
The last item on the list.
Okay, yeah.
I really don't want to. I'd rather say protective gear or crowd management gear. But those are items, everything that's going on, we need to start reviewing and, upgrading, if you will. So,
Hey, Chief, I
think
do
if
have
we
a
work
question.
together- I think if we work together like we have in the past to, prioritize that list, and then as I go through and pull the purchase orders, and we'll get as much as we can off this list, and and then I could consult with the chair, obviously, and the EOTech sites. Last I knew, all the rifles had them. If they're broken or need additional ones, that's the first I'm hearing of it. So I know we did buy additional rifles several years back, but it was still my understanding that there was enough of those. So, a lot of this is everyday stuff that, we just haven't done anything because of the budget freeze. But now that we're trying to close the budget out, we start reviewing this stuff like we do every year.
Hey, Chief, I do have a question. Thermal imaging camera, do you think that's a priority? I do, but I'm not a police officer, so I think it's very important for the police officers to have one.
Well, again, we have one. I don't know the condition of it. A commander was in charge of that. I believe that commander has retired. I was told that other people are looking after that, but again, I don't know when the last time we used it. In all my years, I don't really recall using one at all. But again, it's the situation that it brings, that when you need it, you want it. So, if you want to try to purchase one, we can get prices on one. I mean, you see the wide range, of cost. If we can nail that.
If we need one, if the one that we have isn't working properly, I think we should purchase one. But Deputy Chief, you want to say something?
Yes, I would like to say something. Deputy Chief Rinaldi. It was brought to my attention today, this afternoon, at about 2 o'clock, that we do have a couple of them. Allegedly, one's not working. Now, why wasn't ever brought to our attention? I do not know. But I found out today at a little bit after 2 o'clock. We do have a couple downstairs because we were looking at some of the radar units, and why is it downstairs? It's not up here on the patrol level. It's not being maintained. I mean, last time I can remember using it was before I came up here. I'm talking maybe 3-4 years ago that I know of, and I believe Commander Scharf might have used it once. I'm not sure. But the point is this: is that we have a couple of them And I was just told at 2 o'clock this afternoon that one of them doesn't work. Why wasn't it ever brought to our attention prior to this? I don't know. I was made aware of it. I didn't bring it to the chief's attention yet. So, I mean, that's that with the thermometer.
Okay.
And some
Okay,
of that could be
well-
some of that could be a battery issue or something too. So,
Okay. Well, we'll look at tonight anyways, because the charter does say that the Board of Police Commissioners are in charge of equipment and purchases of equipment. So I'm just going to go through the list very quickly. And if any board member would like to make a motion for our department to purchase it out of the line item, 720 was the line item, Chief?
usually 740s equipment.
Or 740, okay.
Depending on what that equipment is. Sometimes if it deals with the cars, we take it out of 745.
Okay,
But understand what money's left in that 740 account, some of that is appropriated for park cameras that we're responsible for. So there's still some
Yeah.
evaluation that has to go on and money set aside for those park cameras. So,
Right.
there's different things that we start reviewing at this point in time and see what needs to be upgraded. And then those monies, for the board members that don't know this, but years ago when they put the cameras in the parks, they ended up putting everything under the police department budget, and then they give us money every year to maintain those cameras, whether they break, get vandalized, have to be replaced, just worn out. That money set aside in our budget every year that the town gives us, and then we're responsible for maintaining and replacing those, if you will. So, just
okay.
so you hear that.
Dave,
Would it be,
go ahead.
Yes, Dave Bitso. Would it be appropriate for maybe myself to make a motion to allow you to work with the chief to purchase the things that we need to purchase based on the funds that are available, so that we're not all involved in picking and choosing what we need? Would that be appropriate, Chief? Is that
Yeah,
okay
as
with
long
you?
as we do it, as long as we do it this week.
Right
Only
now.
because we got to get the purchase
Yes.
orders out very quickly.
Well, I'll make a motion that that the board allows the chair to work with the chief to determine what we need based on the available funds that we have left over to utilize for this year's budget.
Okay, do we have
Second
a
that
second to that?
Can I just add to that a little bit before we go forward with it?
Who seconded the motion first, Tom?
This was Kyle.
Who seconded that? Kyle seconded the motion. Okay, Tom, discussion?
Is there any way that we could pick at least the top 5 items or 6 items here? Because I'll tell you, I don't understand why don't we have tourniquets? I mean, is that true, Kyle? There are a couple thousand for tourniquets?
It depends. Well, the couple thousand, I think he's referring to the entire department, because both of us looked at it a couple of times. We were trying for a grant I was trying for a grant actually for everybody that got cut down. But to outfit everybody in the department with a tourniquet and with the appropriate carrying case for the tourniquet, in my opinion, was the appropriate carrying case to be carried on their duty belt. It would be a couple of thousand, yes.
All right.
Each?
No. As a whole.
No, they're probably $50 to $60 each.
And the cases are about
Okay,
the same.
Obviously, to be honest with you, we're looking to get at least one for every officer, and then obviously supply maybe one in each trunk, if not maybe 2 for every officer, and then don't put them in the trunk. So,
Okay,
you're probably looking at $4,000 to $5,000 for tourniquets.
okay,
Narcan we have to buy. So these are things that are on my list that, there's different things we have to buy, coming out of
Okay.
that 740 and other accounts. That this is the time of year we do it, basically. You talk about pepper spray, stuff like that. That's when we start doing this. So I think the motion's appropriate, and I think that would go a long way to get some of this
All
stuff.
right. Let's move on, but I got to say, it's kind of aggravating that, if we give a class months ago, how come the guys don't have it? I mean, if you're giving a class on it, the guys should have, the officers should all have this equipment. I mean, to me, that's important. Again, I'm going to say it, the time you need it is the time that you don't find out you have it. So, and that's an important one. I'm not going to harp
We'll
on
make-
it, but I will. To me, that's number one on the list, and number two would be chairs. So, but again, I'll leave it to the chairman and the chief to get those items going.
Yeah,
Dave
Commissioner
Bitzel,
Bennett,
Dave
yes,
Bitzel,
Dave.
Tom, you make a good point, and what I read in there, read between the lines, is that we're waiting too far into the year to start prioritizing a list. And
Yes.
I think we should learn from this, and next year, maybe 2 months before the end of the year, start comprising this list that we have in front of us now, and start prioritizing it so that the last 30 days we know what we're going to buy, and then we get to find out how much money we have to buy what we need and prioritize it. Instead of waiting to the 11th hour every year and scrambling to spend the money. So you're right, Tom. We need to learn from this and be more prepared moving forward down the road.
Thank you.
Yes, Kyle.
I agree with both, and I agree with the motion, and I do agree with Tom. And my recommendation would be to let the chair and the chief look at the list at hand tomorrow, or obviously this week, to see what can be bought through the current budget year, right? And in the meantime, have a prioritized list for us at the next meeting, whether it be from the chief or the deputy chief, that we can look at making purchases from the community account, right? So
Good.
if we say, we look at that list and we pick 5 out of 10, we pick 5 out of 10. Those are things that don't need to go through the town budget. You guys can work on some of the important things right now that can get pushed through for this year, right? And then we can look at the next month approving the purchases of some of those other things on that list.
How,
Very good.
just so I educate myself, out of the community fund, let's say you wanted to buy something tomorrow, you needed it tomorrow. That doesn't have to go through the town fiscal for approval? That can be,
No.
that can be purchased straight out?
Just has to go through us. Has
Okay.
to go through the board, Tom.
All right. Listen, again, if everybody's going to hate me for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyways. I don't see a need to wait another month to approve tourniquets. Does anybody else?
I don't disagree.
No,
I think that they should be ordered tomorrow. That's how I see that.
they
So,
will be, Tom. That's number one on my list too tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So
Thank
to that point, maybe there's a couple of things off of this list that we can say right now, make the motion to purchase, tourniquets being one of them. Maybe the other is the chairs for dispatch, right?
I'm right on with that. I'll go,
And-
chair's important.
Right,
Yes.
for sure. And then we let the chair work with the chief for this ending fiscal year. And then in July, we can look at a few other things and approve the purchases of some other things.
Okay,
Excellent.
then, okay, the motion said that the chief, deputy chief, and the chair will meet and to go over the list and what to purchase. That's what the motion is. We could vote on that motion, and then we could have a second motion to authorize the purchase of those two items. So instead of withdrawing that motion, keep that motion going, where I will meet with the chief and deputy chief tomorrow and go over the remainder of the list to purchase what we could afford to purchase. Yes, Dave?
Are those two items going to be your two top choices?
Yes.
Well, then it's a moot point.
Well, yeah, it is a moot point. I mean, they are gonna be our top two choices. The tourniquet's number one and the chair's number two. So it is, we don't have to make a second motion, as long as you agree that tomorrow morning, that's what we're gonna do.
Well, but the motion was to give you and the chief the power to decide what we need and to buy it.
Right,
And then, like Tom said, anything left over that we don't have money to buy, then we'll look at purchasing that through the community fund funds.
yes, okay. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Abstention, so carry. So tomorrow, what I'll do is I'll meet with the chief and Deputy Chief, are you both going to be in tomorrow morning?
I will be, yes. I'm all Friday, previous engagements, but I'll be here tomorrow.
Okay, then we'll do it Friday.
Yes.
I'm off Friday.
Oh, you're off Friday. Oh, I thought you said
I know what
it'd
you
be better
said.
if we do it Friday.
Yes, sir. I'll be here tomorrow.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I'll stop in tomorrow morning, okay? And the priority list, we'll bring tomorrow tourniquets are number 1 and cheers are number 2. At least we know those 2. So you can work on them purchase orders tomorrow before I get there, okay?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to finalize prices and obviously vendors. Like I said, these are things we were looking at anyways, but obviously a lot of this was hampered by the COVID and then obviously the budget freeze. So,
Okay, very good.
from the town.
Okay.
And, so,
Okay, we're gonna move on. Ooh, I thought there was gonna be a quick meeting. Patrol reports. We received the third shift patrol report. It was emailed to us today. The only concerns I have about when we get emails and stuff like this at the last minute, we got to do a lot of the printing ourselves to do that. So, I mean, that's why I come over and pick up my package. So as we talked to earlier, let's try to get these things done earlier to us, at least by Friday before the meeting on Wednesday. So does any comments on the patrol reports?
I'm not one to normally talk about the reports, but first shift seemed awful light again this month.
Yes, they do.
Second shift was a little busy, but first shift, except for one officer, I mean, there wasn't a lot of activity.
I agree. I can't understand why the first shift pulled only 8 cars over. I don't understand that.
And
we got thousands and thousands of cars that go through this town.
And 2 of the officers,
only pulled 8 cars over.
And 2 of the officers were responsible for 7 of the 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Chairman,
Deputy Chief?
I believe more than this number of stops were made last month.
Okay.
Because I do work days and I do hear, the motor vehicle stops. So I can't answer for the low number, but it being here and hearing motor vehicle stops by some of the officers, I believe it's more than this number. So I don't know. I can't answer why this is 8, but there's more.
I'm not suggesting we pull people over for the sake of pulling them over, but and maybe everybody's behaving themselves. Maybe everybody's stopping at stop signs other than Pearl Street.
If they stayed on Pearl Street just for a half hour, they'll pull 8 people over.
Yes, I understand. But I don't know. I just, like I said, I'm here during the daytime. I've been on, I'm on the road on the weekends during the daytime. It seems like more cars are being stopped than what's documented here. So I guess I'm gonna have to look into that further and find out more. That's all I can tell you right now. But I feel more than 8 cars were stopped for the month of May.
Okay, just thought I might mention it.
I saw it this morning. It's kind of aggravating, but I can tell you, I do hear the officers out there during the daytime, and I believe it's more than 8. So again, I'll look into it, and hopefully next month we'll have more stops.
Well, on my way down the hill this morning, I did see somebody had pulled somebody over, so there was at least one today during the day.
I mean, the officers are out there. Again, certain roads that the commissioners have complained about or mentioned, or we get complaints from the public. We do punch tickets for that, and they, whether it's radar or it's stop sign violations, productivity is there for that. But again, if you're punching the ticket and you're watching for a stop sign, and for whatever reason you could be there for half an hour, sometimes you get lucky, you could stop no cars. Well, I shouldn't say lucky, stop no cars. You get lucky, stop a few cars, or you could go without stopping a car. Again, I hear it out there. I hear them punching that they're doing radar, stop sign violations. Again, I think I'll look into it. And
Thank you, Chief.
Hopefully next month there will not be an issue.
Thank you.
I just want to bring, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm just going to say what I'm not looking at pull vehicles over. I'm just looking at any vehicles that are really breaking the law repeatedly, going through stop signs, speeding, and, you know, and things like this. It just seems like since this coronavirus started, it just feels that the police officers seem to not want to pull cars over
Well,
or not. I hope that's not right. I hope that's not true.
let me just say this much. Sometimes when we stop cars, we have a certain code for a motor vehicle stop. If the stop turns into something else like a drunk, narcotics violation, sometimes the way they put it in the computer system, it won't show that it was a motor vehicle stop. It'll show it could be an arrest or something along those lines. So sometimes you could have more than 8 motor vehicle stops, but it's turned into something else and they change the codes on them. So that could be one of the issues too. I know that's been an issue in the past. It's just the way our system is.
Well, that's good that you said that, Deputy Chief, because I didn't know that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes, there are times that if we stop a car and then it turns into a drunk, they change the code so we get credit under certain things for like a DUI arrest, but it won't show that it was a motor vehicle stop because, again, it's the individual officers sometimes and how they put it in the system when they change it after the fact.
Detective Manisovas, did you want to say something on this subject?
With the expense of you guys spending a lot of time on this subject, I just want to let you know the new system that's going in next gen has a lot more reporting capability and you'll be able to data mine a lot more information. So I know you guys are going to have an in-depth discussion, but as things go forward, I think things are going to be presented a little better and there'll be a lot more information made available to you statistically. So I just please keep the faith as far as that's concerned. So.
Will do. Okay, thank you.
Again,
Next detective reports.
Okay, I apologize that I don't have the detective reports available. Inspector Dingus, of course, is back. He has some catching up to do. So we really didn't get anything out there. I could just tell you briefly, for the month of May, the Detective Bureau did have 12 new cases assigned to them. 5 of them were motor vehicle larcenies. 1 was an untimely death, vandalism complaint. We had 2 burglaries, excuse me, a fraud case, a couple of suspicious activity complaints involving car break-ins. Right now, we are having and as the chief mentioned earlier, we had a task force out there with the motor vehicle thefts. We've been getting hit pretty good lately. We do have the officers out there. I commend a couple of patrolmen on midnights. They came across some people that were trying to break into cars up on Red Oak, which is Upper Skokrat Street. Officer Sachs came upon them, tried to stop them. They fled. He didn't pursue them. Officer Rupsis was running stop sign violations on Skokrat by Heritage. He came upon a vehicle he tried to stop, which fled. He pursued it and then broke off the pursuit. Had a plate on the vehicle, but unfortunately he didn't have the whole plate. Later on in the morning, it was reported stolen. I believe it was out of Birchwood Road. We later located it in Hartford. So the patrolmen on midnights, the patrol people are out there. They're active. You know, they're trying their best and trying to thaw these car break-ins. But unfortunately, we're not immune like the rest of the state.
I hear you. I also noticed that on Maiden Lane, they caught different individuals breaking into sheds and stealing vehicles.
Yes, sir. They dropped the car, the one off, I believe it was from Stratford. And our car was located down in Bridgeport. A couple of days later, we've had the DB's been active in looking into this. So we've found cars in Bridgeport, Waterbury, New Haven, East Haven, and as far as Hartford and Glastonbury within the past couple of months. So the DB is active in looking into these cases. A lot of them are juveniles, of course. We just had a case last, was it Monday, I believe it was, over on Rimmon Street by the Beacon Falls line. We put it on our Facebook page. We got a lot of hits. by people on Facebook, and they did. We were able to identify it's a juvenile out of Waterbury, so we're working on that too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments on the tech reports? Okay, moving on to the K-9 reports. Any questions on the K-9 reports? Okay, here, no questions on the K-9 reports. SRO, they're out of school, so we won't have reports, but I would like to recommend that we post for an upcoming school year. We post for SRO officers at the schools. We have one at the middle school, one at the high school, and we post it. It doesn't say in the contract anymore how long a person stays in that position. For some reason, it was taken out of the contract. I don't know why, because it used to be 2-year assignments, but it's not in the contract anymore. I don't believe, at least I can't find it. So I would like to see it posted so that we're ready come September or the end of August if school does start.
Yes, Chief.
Is it going to be in a new? Is it going to be in a new contract? I'm sorry.
I have no idea, Tom.
No,
No acknowledgement there.
There used to be a 2-year limit when the contract was done, I believe in 15. Language was removed for whatever reason, and that was kind of a surprise to us a couple of years ago. So generally what we have done is we rotate people 2 years. Obviously, we're a smaller department, so we try to give people opportunity. The guys that are in there, the officers are doing a great job. They build good rapport, and but being that we're a small department, it might be time to give other people opportunity. The other ones have done a phenomenal job, and we got great reports. But now with everything else going on, opportunity, it exposes the newer officers to different students, staff, parents, and now it's maybe time for other people to build that community relationship and partnership. And obviously those are hopefully lifelong. And so if the board wishes, I will post that, and then we'll see who may or may not sign up. It doesn't mean that the ones that are currently there can't sign up and apply for it again, but I think it's probably, we'll see who applies and what happens, if anybody different applies, so.
Okay. I was just asking about the contract, because I know the new one's going to go in effect in July. Is that correct?
If it's ever finalized.
So yeah, to my knowledge, it's hasn't been finalized. Negotiations, I would say, is still ongoing, or it hasn't been finalized yet. So July 1st,
Okay.
It probably take effect, but hopefully soon after, it will be. So, but that area wasn't brought up or touched, if you will. So
Okay. It doesn't matter anyway.
Will remain the same.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
And the 2 officers that are presently our SRO officers can sign up for it. It's saying that we're going to replace them or anything. It's just that we should list it because it doesn't say in the contract anymore that they're 2-year positions. Okay, moving on to the car report. Yes, the union wants to say something. John?
Yeah, on the K9 report, I just wanted to give you an update. Officer Gallows, Doug Argus, he has received his vest. So just wanted to give you guys an update on that. He has received it, and it's in service now. So that's the update on his vest. Today I put in a request for one for myself and K9 Zor. So I'm waiting for a response on that. The donor we had
For a vest?
Yeah, for the vest. The donor we had is having some difficulties on his end. So
Okay.
the company does fundraising as well. So we'll see how that goes in the next month for a vest for my daughter.
Okay, thank you.
And the only other question was on the equipment, Officer Gallo's vehicle. I know you had there's 2 vehicles that were approved tonight. If you're discussing with the chief, if possibly you could discuss with him one of those vehicles, possibly being the K9 vehicle. That would be a great thing for us. We would also look into stuff for inside the car. There are several grants out there that we can look into to help offset the cost. So just putting that out there. Whatever's needed, we can see what we can do on our end.
Okay, thank you, John.
All right, thank you.
Okay, car report. Chief? We have the 3 cars.
3 cars are still waiting to be outfitted. I talked to the vendor and, you know, they tell me the equipment's ordered. They're waiting for delivery. I guess, obviously, with everything else that's been happening to COVID, things are backlogged. So supply chains have been affected, and that's kind of where we stand. So we're on top of it. I missed a phone call today from the vendor because I was in the meeting, if you will. But when I tried calling him back, he didn't get back to me. But he's speaking with his partner or whatever Monday. That's what they tell me. So, you know, we kind of knew this was going to happen, or, you know, we don't want it to happen, but we're trying to move those along as fast as we can. So that's a work in progress to get those outfitted.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Any questions on the car report, John?
Yeah.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, we spoke about looking into some vendors for the vehicles at the last meeting, possibly extending the search outside of Seymour to find, you know, vendors for working on the vehicles. Where do we stand with that?
So that was assigned to Commander Fabiano. He oversees the car maintenance. Told him to go back out, go to each and every individual service station that may or may not be interested. I believe he did that last week. At the end of last week, I believe he said no one really reported back to him. I said, well, go visit them individually or call them again. And I have not received an update on that. So I
Okay.
see
Thank
I
you.
see him on. I don't know if he could tab in or.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Commander Fabiano here.
Fabiano? Yeah.
Yes. So, an update on the car report. I made up a letter and I dropped it off at 5 local businesses in town. And I requested to have a response back. And we wanted it in writing what the board was looking for, what the department's looking for. And to date, I haven't received anything back from any of those vendors. I went there, I spoke with the owners. I also followed up with phone calls. A few of them said the time's not right. They would need a little bit more time just to prepare those reports. Some said maybe next year if we open it up next year, but they were all local in town and I still haven't heard anything back.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just stay on top of it and see if we could get another vendor possibly, because it doesn't seem that we're satisfied with the vendor that we have. So.
Will do.
Okay.
Will do. We've been working with some other vendors, you know, depending on the situation with the cars. So we'll continue to do that and try to report back.
Okay, very good. Okay, under new business, on the agenda is body cams and dashboard cams. Body cams, I believe the federal government and the state are looking at, I know through the state police, they're looking at getting body cams and so forth. I believe we should hold off on the body cams because if we purchase them now, we won't get reimbursed if grants come along the line through federal or state. So we should hold off for a month or two on looking at the body cams. But I also believe that we should possibly look at putting dashboard cams on each of the vehicles. Since we don't have the body cams, the dashboard cams could really help out in a situation too. And I believe we would need at least 8 or 10 of those dashboard cams for that. And I believe you could hold, I'm not too technical on this, but I believe a lot of the information on that could be put in a cloud or something so that you don't need a lot of room for storage. So what's the board's feeling on getting dashboard cams for each of the vehicles?
I'd like to make a motion that we have a report back from either the chief or the deputy chief with their recommendations so that we can move forward with a purchase come next month.
I'll
Well, that's
second.
good. Yeah. Okay, a motion made by Kyle, second by John Duke, to have the chief and deputy chief come back with recommendations for the dashboard cams for each of the vehicles, the cost in, of not only the purchase, but the installation of those on each one of them. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstention, so carry 5-0. Thank you very much. I'm just one commissioner, so I just want to hold off on the body cams at this time until we find out what the federal and state government's going to be doing with the body cams. Because if grants become available after the fact we purchase them, we're probably not going to get reimbursed for the body cams. The storage is what's going to cost us, and I went over this with the chief, between $30,000 and $40,000 a year just to store it at our size of our police department. That's a very large expense that we also have to talk with the First Selectman's office and Board of Finance concerning the future cost of this. So at this time, I would just hold off on the body cams unless the board has any other decision to make on the body cams. Okay, hearing nothing more. Okay, the
Mr.
other
Chair.
thing on the, yes, go ahead.
Chief Satkowski. So with
Yep.
the body cameras, obviously, as I talked earlier, there's recommendations being put forth. That's one of them. And no matter what proposal you look at, national or, I mean, federal or state. So if you don't mind, I think we'll start doing some research on our end and reviewing vendors and potential products and stuff and then cost. We could start working on some of that stuff. And then if and when we're ready, then we could move forward. But if you don't mind, I think we'll start working on some of that stuff.
No, that's good. No, that's good. Stay ahead of the game. It's a very good suggestion. Okay, moving on. Another thing is, I read an article in the Waterbury paper concerning bias and cultural diverse class training, which I think, and I did talk to the chief about this. I don't believe we've had any of this class training. There is a sergeant, I believe, in Waterbury that conducts these classes. It was a nice article in the Waterbury paper concerning that. I think the timing is just right to have each one of our officers go through the bias and cultural diverse class training. I think Mr. Bennett brought this up earlier in the meeting about the bias training and so forth. I think this is a very important issue. What's the board members have any discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman, John Duke. I think not only just the officers, but top to bottom, the entire department should take part in this.
Chief Satkowski, yes, that's what would be done. Every employee from my office down would have that, just as we have done in the past. We have done cultural diversity in the past, and that went from top down, so that would remain the same. So that again, we could. I know DOJ offers classes. I think they sent out an email about a week or so ago. I had discussion with the chair on that. So those are things we're reviewing to see what's available, when it's available, and hopefully start moving in that direction to get a refresher or update on that cultural diversity.
Okay, what I would like to do is have a motion to allow the chief to look into the bias cultural diversity class for all members of the Seymour Police Department and report back to us at our next meeting to tell us the update of when we can have these classes begin. Could I have that motion?
I'll make it.
Motion by Tom, second by Dave. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, so carried. Thank you very much. I think that's a very important piece of the training. Okay, next, correspondence. We received a number of correspondence in your package on the different parades and that went by on individuals, houses, through the cars, thanking the Seymour PD and Emo Seeger Post 10. The street. Pink, thanks so much for leading the birthday parade. That was another birthday parade, and Kim and Hillary, I believe it is, of Tickle Pink want to thank the Seymour Police Department. And I believe that's the three that I have under communications. Okay. On the correspondence, I mean. And any other business board members want to bring up? I hope not. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner, oh, Tom, did you want to bring something up?
No, not me.
Oh, okay. Okay, commissioners' comments? Okay, we'll go through. John Duke, do you have any comments?
No, I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
Dave Bitzel? Bitzel?
Yes, I gotta find the mute button. Just want to bring something up that Tom touched on in his comments earlier. Chief, I'd like to strongly recommend that you put a process in place to get going on the reviews. I mean, that process includes the sergeants, the commanders, the deputy chiefs. I know covert, was important and it still is important. And outside of some meetings that you were, attending with the other town officials regarding COVID-19, I don't think that would be a reason in itself to postpone all the reviews and the process. It's a big process that has to be put in place. We spent a lot of time creating these reviews, 2 different reviews, and I just would like to see the ball get rolling. I know that everybody's busy, but I don't want to come to September and find out nothing was done because we had COVID-19 issues. So that's all I want to say. I just like to see things get going. There's a lot of different layers of management that are involved in the process. So I'll leave it at that.
John Duke?
I apologize. I forgot my own thing that I brought up earlier about the community officer position and what the board and the chief's feeling on that is.
Okay, yes, thank you for reminding me. I said we'll place that on the table. So could I have a motion to place on the table at this time discussion of the community policing officer?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Kyle, second by John. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention so carried. Okay, John, it's on the table now. You're recommending that we look at putting a community policing officer back on?
Yes, I just think given the current climate and everything going on, nationwide and even somewhat at a state and local level, that now would be the time to try to start building some bridges with, new members of the community or even the elderly population who might be unsettled, whether it be, email or phone scams, just to try to get back out there and get on the same level as some of our residents and our at-risk groups. I think it would be a nice addition back for the department with the community. I don't know. I know in the past we've had one, and I don't know if there's any interest in it now, but I think it would be beneficial to everybody.
I
Any other
agree
board
with.
members have agreed with it? Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay, Kyle.
This is Kyle. I agree with Commissioner Duke. Growing up, I actually remember having the community police officer at the time. I believe it was Officer Romagna, going back several years. And most recently, I believe it was Officer Harkins, who helped a lot with a lot of the community events going on downtown. The Trick or Trunk, very influential in helping getting fundraising for that. So I definitely see the value in it. I definitely support it. Obviously willing, we have The rest of the department's up to par as far as numbers, and we are able to get the funding for it. But as long as we have those, I'm definitely in favor for it.
Any other discussion? Yes, Dave.
Dave Bitso. I couldn't agree more. Timing's perfect. Second phase just came into effect today. Phase 2, phase 3 is around the corner. We have the additional personnel since the SROs are not in the schools, so we've got excess people available. At least I think we do. So that's a great idea, John.
Any other comments?
Chief
Okay,
Satkowski.
then. Yes, Chief.
Yeah, so I think it's a great idea. We used to have a community officer when the situations arose in the school after all the mass school shootings. The decision was made by the board to pull the community person and make 2 SROs, and that's how we got to where we are. I'm all for community policing. I was hired under community policing. I'm an advocate for community policing. I've seen the value of those programs. And I think it's a great position to have. I think there will be interest from the officers here to go into that position. And then obviously, I think there's many great officers that'll fit that position. So I'm all for that. The only thing is, obviously, we have to keep in mind the budget's been set. We have an additional detective, but it could impact the bottom line because you're going to lose another person in patrol. And then if we keep that person there, losing a person in patrol does cost overtime. So I don't have a problem with the position. I just want the board to be aware that overtime could increase when you lose a body. And then obviously they're still doing an important function, but I just want to put that out there that it could increase and probably will increase overtime overall throughout the year. Maybe not immediately, but it will have an impact on that budget because you're losing that body in patrol 40 hours a week. And the community officer can't count towards minimum manning according to the contract. So I'm just putting that out there to the board to be aware of that.
Okay. I believe we have the highest number of patrolmen are on day shift anyway, so I just believe that if we do have a community policing officer, but he would also work some later than just a day shift because he would go to community events and so forth up to if the high school or whatever and so forth, or the middle school or grammar school. I agree. I think this is the right time to have one. So could I have a motion to have them post for a community policing officer, have the chief post for a community policing officer?
I have one more thing under discussion, if I may. Is it possible to, for now, since we have those 2 SROs, to utilize that, right? So they're not in the schools right now. They're not going to be in the schools for the next couple of months, and then reevaluate it come the end of summer, depending on where the budget stance is with the town. This way, we're not taken away from patrol. If we're putting 2 more SROs back into the school, this way patrol is still covered, and we have the SROs, we have the community resource officer, and everything would be good if that's a possibility. Or share responsibilities from the SRO and making an SRO and community officer, if that's even a possibility.
So Chief Satkowski, combining the 2 positions, I think there'd have to be discussion with the union because obviously right now the contract lays out different positions and special assignments. If you're going to combine those 2, I think it's a great idea maybe to use them temporarily for the summer. But keep in mind, I said earlier that I'm down 1 officer because of a workman's comp injury. So obviously I'm not going to say who or where, but just keep that in mind. I'm already running short, and I still have an officer out long term. And but it is a good time, and I'm all for it. But as I said, I just want the board to be aware of possible expenses with that situation.
I just want the board to realize we're talking about a new position. SRO officers are one position and community policing is a different position. So it's very difficult for us unless we negotiate with the union saying, can we change the titles of SROs to community policing at this time? So we would have to post anyways in the SRO officer. If they so choose to sign up for that, they could do that. So I just want to make sure that we don't violate the union contract either.
Well,
Because
let me ask you a question. I mean, wasn't Officer Harkins a community officer?
yes,
He
Okay,
was.
and he was under the current contract.
yeah, but he was just a
Yeah, but-
community officer. He wasn't an SRO officer.
No,
Right.
well, aren't we talking about putting back a community officer in place? Are we talking about putting a community officer in place to replace Harkins?
Yes.
Isn't that
so
what Commissioner Duke is?
As
Yes,
I
that's
said,
what replacing
so-
the former
So
position.
it's already in the contract. That position is already in the contract. Community
Yeah.
officer.
Yes, but
Yeah, no,
Kyle
we're not-
wants to use the SRO officers as a community officer.
That was
That
just
was
an option I was throwing out there.
right. It's
That
an
was just an
but there
option
has to
that
be
Kyle
discussion
brought
on that.
up, and I explained that can't be done. We got to fill the position as said. So
Okay.
just what John said and you said, Dave.
Okay,
Has to be
so
filled. We have
so
to
let me-
post for a community policing officer.
So let me ask this question. We have more than full staff on first shift. We have excess, I don't want to say excess patrol. But what if one of the patrols, he was assigned to downtown, to patrol downtown? Maybe on foot. And not just give him that community title. Is that being too creative?
No, we could do that. I mean, we have a bike and a scooter that's never been used in a long, long time. They probably won't even start. Well, the bike might. It probably has flat tires. But that's what we had the bike and the scooter for, is for the community policing officer to go through downtown and up at the shopping malls and so forth. So, I mean, we could do that too. But I would recommend that we post for that position. We'll be filling that position. So whatever the board wants to do.
Was there a
Okay,
motion?
since nobody's talking, you have two options. We either post for the community policing officer, or else we recommend to the chief and deputy chief that they assign one of the day shift officers, if they could rotate a day shift officer to patrol in the downtown area, just like a community officer. But a community officer also goes to different functions. They go up to the senior center, they go up to the senior housing. It's a lot different than just patrolling in the downtown area. So I would recommend, at least my recommendation is to post for a community policing officer so we fill Harkin's position.
I agree. I think that would be the best course.
Commissioner Duke, are you making a motion?
I will. Yeah, I'll make that a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by John Duke, second by Dave Bitzel to post for a community policing officer, and hopefully we'll have a recommendation for our next meeting. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, abstentions, so carried, 5-0. Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing that up, John. Okay. We're under union business. John, or the attorney, Tony, Anthony, any union business?
Yes. So the memo for the shorts, that wasn't brought up. I was wondering, did you get that one?
Yeah, who wears shorts?
Just the private duty. I did the memo. So the union's looking to just for the certain months of June, July, and August and September. Private duty jobs only. And it would only be under construction. No funeral homes, nothing else. Just construction jobs only. The style of the short was put in there, which is a blower, which matches our current uniform. brought this up during several months ago, I think, but we just put it on the back burner until the weather got warmer. So just bringing it back up again to see what the board's opinion is on this.
Mr. Chairman, it's Brian Leclerc, if I may.
Yes, Brian.
Just to remind this board that under the state statutes, there's certain mandatory subjects of collective bargaining, and that includes conditions of employment. And if the uniform includes the shorts, that would be a condition of employment. And under 7474, the chief executive, in this case, the first selectman, represents the town in collective bargaining. This has to be a subject of collective bargaining. I know it's come up in the past in collective bargaining under the contract. So I just want to put that out there.
If I may.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
This is Kyle. Is this something that was already discussed in negotiations?
There was discussion on it, but there was no decision made on it. It was going to be put as a policy. That's what we discussed, not in the contract itself. So we would leave it as if the chief wanted to, if we put it in place and the chief finds there's a problem, he can then remove it if he feels there's a problem. So we didn't want to put it. We didn't want to put it in the contract, but we discussed it as a policy instead.
So it was discussed in the contract, and there was action being taken similar to the jumpsuits, correct?
Yes.
There was no action taken on it because it was not going in the contract.
But there was discussion had, and something was going to be done about it?
Well, the contract hasn't been finalized yet.
Correct.
Right.
So,
this has nothing to do with the contract. This is after the fact, a policy. Made agreement between the chief, the board, and everybody.
So what was the last discussion that was had during contract negotiations about the shorts?
That it would be a policy, not in the contract, though. Because if it's in the contract, it's locked in.
Right.
Policy, it can be removed at any point, just like the jumpsuits.
So it's Chief Sadkowski, if I may. This was discussed as part of negotiations, the jumpsuit, the shorts. It was agreed upon, and it's still part of negotiations, if you ask me, because that contract has not been finalized. There's been tentatively, but without that finally being finalized, I think it's still a contract negotiation issue. It was discussed being a policy, but obviously without negotiations being finalized, to me, it's still a negotiation issue, just like the jumpsuits were, but the board took action on the jumpsuits. But this is still an ongoing issue. It was tentatively agreed upon. It would be probably more policy, or will be policy than, but it is part of that whole negotiation package, if you will. So,
just for the record, I'm for the shorts, right? Just like I was for the jumpsuits, but I think it needs to be finished where it was started, and that was with negotiations. Once the contract is done, if that was something that was discussed during the contract and it was a give and take, that's negotiations, right? That's why you have negotiations. Once the contract's done, and that's what comes out of it, that the chief is going to make a policy on the shorts for whatever else, then that happens. As of right now, I don't think it's our place to act on it.
But there's nothing in the contract. This wasn't a negotiation that we're getting shorts for something else. Our contract is cleanup language, okay? So there's nothing, it has no, we're not giving something up to get the shorts. We're not, nothing like that. It's a policy that can be removed at any point. So going back to the contract negotiations has no point, has no bearing on contract negotiations at all.
it does. It does. It was discussed about what are you willing to give up, and then we kind of said, okay.
Policy.
I know that. That's what we agreed upon. That it would be policy, but it's still part of that whole negotiation package where it was originally brought up. That's where you originally brought it up as part of that package deal. Yes, you did.
We brought it up under the package.
And then it kind of a tentative agreement that'll be more policy than contract.
Right, so a point of order, please, if I may, Mr. Chairman. That's on the table, right? We can go back and forth with the union, with the administration. Again, I'm for the shorts. I think, and just for the record, John, it's not just cleanup language. There was a lot of other things that
I
took
understand.
place, and it was that
They
has
want
been,
us to
hold
move
on.
on.
That has been talked about for months now. The chairman's brought it up about all different kinds of negotiations going on back and forth. It wasn't cleanup language, so we can
Okay.
throw that right out the window. That's my stance, and I defer my time back to the chair.
Okay, John, any other issue?
If I could say something about what John is speaking about,
Go ahead.
I think we were anticipating that the discussion on the shorts was going to be somewhat benign, that the parties agreed that some things could happen by policy, just as John is articulating that if the department was willing to have individuals wear shorts, they could put it by policy. If it went bad, they could remove it. It wasn't contractual. Now, we concede the point. We did talk about it at the bargaining table. However, throughout this discussion, I'm concerned that there's vocabulary that the parties don't have a contract. We do. There are things that have triggered, that have been in the benefit for the town of Seymour that the union has been abiding by, like the new detective position, the new hours. So to say that the contract is still being negotiated is untrue. There have been changes to health insurance. There have been a lot of things that have occurred. The parties did agree that they were going to preserve two issues, and neither party could force the other party to interest arbitration on those issues. And those are related to light duty assignments and comp time. Those are the only two issues, but all the other things in the contract have been agreed to. That was even voted on by this board. So I don't know why we're saying that there's ongoing negotiations. Now, again, we will concede the point that either party could refuse to talk about those two issues that we've left off the table, but everything else is done.
So if I could, is it fair to
Yes,
say
John.
that this could be handled between the union president and the chief in good faith and then brought to the board with the agreement, or are we at a stalemate here and you're coming to the board for a decision?
On the shorts?
Yes.
I think John was just merely bringing it up because, as I think everybody's saying the same thing, it was agreed to that it would be pursued as a policy. And we're just looking for a status of that. Just like the jumpsuits. This was not meant to be an I got you moment on shorts.
Well,
So if you
I
were
know
looking
everybody's-
for an update on it, that's different than coming to the board and asking us to act on something. That's not right. If you already had this discussion and you're looking for an update on it, then that update should have been up in the chief's office, right?
But we brought the last jumpsuit to you guys, and you said you make the policies and everything. So this
You
is
did bring that up last time, and we had the discussion that I didn't realize. I don't think many people on the board realized that it was something that already came up in contract negotiations until after the fact.
right. So this is why I'm bringing it to you now, because we went to you last time, and you said you make the policies. So this is why. If you want it to go to the chief, I can sit down with the chief. That's fine, but that's why I brought it back to you guys.
Dave Bitso,
Yeah, Dave.
we have there's a contract in place right now. Correct? Correct?
Yes.
So this policy would fall under that contract. The contract that you're talking about that's being negotiated is the new contract that either can be voted on and accepted prior to the other contract expiring, or take over and once the current contract expires, correct? So any negotiation, if there is a negotiation on shorts, it's for the new contract
No,
that may or may not replace the current one.
no, it's
So
not. It's not getting put in the contract.
No,
That's
I
why.
understand that, John. But what I'm saying is there's a current contract right now, and this could fall under policy under the current contract, if I'm understanding it right. Any negotiations that might be taking place or may or may not be taking place are part of the new contract that's being negotiated. Is that
No.
correct?
There's only two pieces of the new contract that are left open. The rest the parties have abided by. That's precisely how the board has the new detective position with the new hours. That's a function of the negotiations. The parties agreed to negotiate a successor contract while the other contract was still in place. So we've extended it all the way out until 2025. And as part of the tentative agreement, the parties withheld 2 issues, and those were related to comp time and light duty assignments. Neither one of those issues could be brought to impasse to interest arbitration. We agreed. Oh, I'm sorry. There's one other issue as well: the scheduling. The parties were continuing to discuss alternative schedules. But again, none of those 3 issues could be brought to interest arbitration to impasse, while all the other issues were resolved.
Let me just clear something up here. You keep saying that you're not under negotiations. You just said 3 items that you're negotiating that isn't in the current contract. So you are under negotiations. So don't say you're not under negotiations trying to change things in the contract. You're definitely trying to change things in the contract. This board got stuck with having to hire another detective. We got stuck because that's what the administration negotiated. So, I mean, we got another detective that we didn't even need. And we got a detective because the town wanted the insurance to go to Cigna. Now, all of a sudden, you got to go back to Blue Cross. All you had to do was wait a year and you wouldn't have to do all this stuff. But no, you wouldn't listen to anybody. You had to go and negotiate and take that. So the union is negotiating with the town. And believe it or not, one little item that you change from this contract to another, like duty, if you change it, that's negotiations. You're changing a policy that's in the current contract to something new. I always believed and always saw that the Board of Police Commissioners had the authority, if they wanted to make a motion to change the uniform design or use. That's my feeling, and I believe we did it with the jumpsuits, and I believe that's a policy that the board could approve. So, I mean, I don't believe that's part of negotiations, is the uniform. So I just want to let that out. Anybody else have any comments? Oh, you muted me. Thank you. No, okay. So, Chief, how do you feel about the union members during this time period wearing shorts?
Chief Sadkowski. So, I'm not a big fan of them, but that's just me personally. You know, I guess there's good and bad in either way, but through negotiations, we said we would discuss further. You know, we would set some parameters. I think Officer Oskowski, the union president, mentioned some of those. So overall, I'm not really for them at this point in time, but, you know, I like the more professional look. I don't think shorts looks all that professional for our climate. I know there's hot days. I worked many of those hot days throughout my years, but you know, it's really up to the board. What does the board want their police department to look like out in public? I'm not a big fan of them personally. I'm just putting that out there. So as far as the detective hours, Commissioner, you hit it exactly. That was part of a different negotiated deal that to solve grievances and stuff. So that really has nothing to do with this issue and negotiations. Those were already done. But that's kind of my stance. And I mean, I'm not for, you know, they would have to definitely just be for road jobs and road jobs only, not high school graduation, not funeral services, you know. So I think if you're going to do something, we have to make sure that is in there and understood. And they're definitely, when you're standing next to a hole in the road or you know, overhead, you know, whatever, on the road itself, construction related. So.
I'm just author the use of shorts.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you can hear me, but you froze. You might want to give it a second.
Yeah, please repeat.
Am I still frozen?
No, there, you're back now. You got to start from the beginning.
Okay, hey Brian, could you give us an opinion? Can the board make a decision on whether we allow the officers to wear shorts during construction jobs?
No, it's our position that that's a condition of employment, that it's something that's part of collective bargaining
Okay,
at this point.
okay, so our attorney said that we don't have that authority to do that. Yes,
So-
Tony, Anthony?
So I just want, thank you. So I just want to be clear. If Kurt Miller is okay with the guys wearing shorts, then they could wear shorts.
No, no, where did you get that from?
Well, if it's an issue of collective bargaining, that's up to the town. If
But
we
it has to be
negotiate with the,
approved by the Board of Selectmen too. It just isn't one individual that approves the contract. In fact, the contracts have to be approved by the full Board of Selectmen.
oh, no,
Not by
I'm
one
just saying it, I was sloppy the way I said that. But my question is if it's approved by the town side, the commission has no issue with it. So we should pursue it with the town.
That's what our attorney is telling us.
Oh, okay.
Based off of the fact that that's where it was started.
Just for the record, I have no issue with it. I'm good with it. So
Because all of our discussions with the mayor have been this. He cares about the money and the insurance, and he said things that involve policing, he'll leave it up to this board and the chief. So we said, okay, we want to wear shorts. You guys are telling us to go back to them? We'll do that.
No, I'm not telling you to go back to them. Our attorney's saying that that's part of negotiations. I believe the board has the authority on uniforms, but our attorney's telling us different than I believe, but I'm not always right, so.
I ask how come
I think that this needs to be handled between the union and the chief, brought to the town. If they all sign off on it, then it would come to us for approval, is the way
Okay.
it sounds to me.
Okay,
That would become a policy, so I don't see wasting any time on this.
okay, sounds good. Thanks, John. Okay, is there any other union business?
We just want to bring up that we had our golf tournament last year, and we raised funds to buy every officer a outer vest carrier. Most of the officers have been supplied with the new vest carriers. There have been no complaints on the carriers. It allows them to get a few things off their waist, get some little back relief with the new carriers. I don't know if you've seen them yet, but they're pretty nice looking. A couple of features they have if one of our officers goes down. There's a drag harness on the back of the vest. And like I said, get some stuff off their belt and a little relief on their backs. So that was all bought by the union through funds from the golf tournament. So, let's see. Just want to bring up that the town's going back to Anthem, like you said, Commissioner, July 1st.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're going through a whole lot because you want to go to Cigna.
Yeah. So I just want to bring that to the board's attention as well. And I think that's it until the grievance. We have 3 new grievances. You want to bring those up now, or how do you want to approach that?
Yeah, because you have a right to discuss the grievances with the board. The board then could go in executive session and make a decision if they so choose to. But we have 2
I'm not sure if
other.
anybody can hear me, but I can't hear anything.
You can't hear nothing? Dave? Can the board hear me?
Mr.
Yep.
Chairman, I can hear you. Yeah.
You're on mute. But that doesn't matter. Can you hear us now, Dave? I've been going in and out all night too.
Ms. Curtis, do you know what time?
He's
I'm
unmuted.
at
Oh, he was unmuted.
he's on mute, but he's still.
Dave, don't touch anything for a second.
Union President, I just want to bring this up very quickly. Things that you want the officers to wear to take things off their belt, is that part of the uniform change?
It was signed off by the chief. We
Oh,
brought
was
it. Yes.
Okay,
There were certain things, the firearms instructors, certain guidelines that we went by, which, we discussed with the chief, and it was signed off by him. So
okay.
before we purchased it.
No, I just want to make sure that we're just following suit on everything. We're just waiting for Dave to come back.
Mr. Chairman, if I might just remind you, it's Brian Leclerc.
Yes, Brian.
Because I know you mentioned a possible executive session regarding certain grievances that the union's bringing forward. As you know, an officer who is subject to the grievance has a right to have that heard publicly if he does not want it in executive session. So you'll have to inquire of those officers just to make sure before you go into executive session, if that's your intention.
Yeah, the two officers that we are going to go into executive session on are here.
Yeah, I didn't know who the officers were. That's why I was pointing that out to you.
The union just presented us with 3 new grievances today, or for this meeting, days back. Okay, so the union just presented us with 3 new grievances. We're going to discuss them in open session. We're not going in executive session on those. These are 3 grievances that were presented to us. And board members, I don't know if you reviewed those 3 grievances that the union gave us. Not the one on Mike Jasmine or Joe Manasovich. The other 3 grievances.
Yes.
Did the board members review them? Okay. Okay, let's discuss.
And just to be clear, we're staying in open session?
Yeah, we're staying in open session on these here. Because it's step 2 of the grievance. We always stayed in open session because these are something that we don't have to act on tonight, but we've always given the opportunity to the union to discuss and the reason why they're filing a grievance. The first one is Christopher Mara. The union put in a grievance concerning that issue. The union president wanted to give an update to the board on that one. That's grievance 20-05.
Anthony, you want to go into this?
Hold on, let me just pull up my file quickly. Okay, well, you wanted to start with, I'm sorry, Officer Mara?
Yes.
Officer Mara was issued a written warning that we're looking to have rescinded.
Is that it?
Yeah, John, was that the one? I'm trying to think. I just can't pull up the file. My computer's not playing with me nicely.
Back to vehicle in another vehicle. Back the car into another vehicle.
Yes, and we believe when we had the one of the last board meetings that we agreed that no IAs or nothing would happen out of minor car accidents. This was a minor car accident. This was an older vehicle. There was nothing that was particularly remarkable about this. So we believe that the written warning is unfounded.
Okay. Do the board members have any questions about a written warning was given because of the accident?
I guess, Dave Bitso, I guess the only thing I want to say is I do remember this discussion at the meeting when we talked about IAs. But I believe that's where we left it, was that there would be an IA on every car incident. It would be handled on a case-by-case basis. So I'm not saying hey or nay on this. I'm just trying to clarify what I remember hearing was that we wouldn't have an IA on every car accident.
Well, there was approximately $950 worth of damage to the vehicle. And I believe written warning under section 15.01, the written warning was given to the officer for that action. Now, this is step 2. I believe it'd be step 2 of the grievance procedure. The board could either affirm what the chief has done or change any action. As a board, we don't have to act on them tonight. I mean, I don't want to fall into that again. We could act on them at our next meeting. So if the board doesn't have, if they want to think about it and we'll act on our next meeting, that's what we will do. What's the board's pleasure? Would you like to act on it tonight, or would you like to wait until next meeting?
I just want to, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Tom Bennett.
Yes.
I just want to clarify the union's position is they want the written warning rescinded because, and again, if Attorney Bento could clarify, I don't want to put words into his mouth. I want to make sure I understand it correctly, why they're looking for this to be rescinded.
Again, it was just a minor accident. We don't believe that discipline was necessary.
Okay, so we're saying because we're saying that minor accidents should no longer be internal affairs investigations. So therefore, he shouldn't be subject to a written warning discipline based on an internal affairs investigation, correct?
Yes, and it wasn't. And again, there was no nothing wrong that the officer did. It was just a minor, just backing into. I believe it was a pole. John, what was it? Or
it was another vehicle that the parking sensors didn't pick up on his vehicle.
And again, I think I wasn't particularly. I didn't realize we were going to talk about these 3 grievances that were put in front of the board today. I thought they were going to be next meeting, but it's good that we talk about them one meeting ahead of time, I guess. And this dovetails nicely into the conversation we had prior that all the vehicles are different. And this is a vehicle, I guess it's one of the older ones that the individuals didn't realize that there was no backing sensors on this one, was used to driving the other vehicles and backed this one up and just basically had a little bumper damage. That was it. Reported it, was forthcoming. So we don't believe it's the type of thing that warrants discipline. It was just an accident. Accidents happen.
Yeah, I'm going to say, sometimes I'm kind of torn on some of these. And really, when you look at it, I'm not a big discipline guy. I'm a correction guy, and I think that, we got to look at, did this correct what the issue was instead of looking at the discipline itself? I think that's what I got to look at to say to myself, hey, did Mara understand what happened? Is the department going to be satisfied that it was just merely an accident and something that doesn't need retraining? Or I don't know. I guess I'm a different generation. I still use the mirrors on the car.
Is there any, does anyone know?
That was a joke, everybody. So, and if Mara's listening, that was a joke.
In the written warning, it says that this was Mara's second accident or incident within 6 months. Does anybody know what the other incident was?
Chief does.
Yes, am I allowed to speak, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first accident, let's go to that one. He was on patrol, doing his job, obviously, but he ran over a center island and caused damage to the underneath carriage of another vehicle. So we had discussion on that. That was obviously looked into because that's what we, any accidents or, we looked into, to an IA. He received a counseling memo that was discussed. Be careful. You got to be more careful of your surroundings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He understood that. The second one, obviously, he took a car, he backed it into another vehicle, and, they say minor damage, but you see the price there in that written warning, what it costs to fix that vehicle. And there's still damage to the other truck, which they're looking to have replaced. It's like a $200 horn. So now that brings it over $1,000. And, I feel a written warning was more than satisfactory in this situation. And, second incident within 6 months. And that lays it out. It's right in front of you. There's nothing hidden. And to go back, the action you took, I believe, was in the April meeting. This was all prior to that. And I believe a question was asked to the chair at that meeting. And it was discussed moving forward from that April meeting. So this happened, in March where this is imposed. So to me, we said we weren't going to go back with accidents, but we're moving forward was that new, what the board said. So that's just to clarify that issue.
Hey, John Niskowski?
I got two things. First one, did we get more than one quote to fix this vehicle? And second, Chief, you had several accidents yourself. When you backed into the chain at the firehouse, what did you get for discipline?
Yeah, I think we had that discussion once before. This isn't about Chief Sapkowski tonight, but I did receive.
One is good for the other.
I did receive. Yeah, but this isn't about Chief Sapkowski. This is about this grievance, and that's what's on the table right now. So
I tend to agree.
I said in public record once before what the outcome of that was. And if you really want to know, I received a written warning for that. Yes, I did. Chief Metzler gave me a written warning for
thousands of dollars worth of damage, not 950 that wasn't going out to bid.
All right, I think like Kyle
listen,
said,
I'm not going to debate.
Okay, let's not.
All right, I'm going to start muting people in a moment.
We're talking about. We're talking about this grievance. We're not talking about the chief. We're talking about this grievance here. So does the board want to act on this grievance tonight, or do you want to hold it off to our next meeting?
I have one more question on the grievance.
Yes.
The grievance is from March. The discipline was carried out back on, it's dated March 11th of this year. The grievance was just filed on June 15th. Was it the union's decision to file the grievance, or was it the officer's decision to file the grievance? Let me clarify that. Did the officer in March come to the union asking that or saying that he wanted to file a grievance, or did the union in the last month approach the officer asking if he wanted to file a grievance?
So again, a lot of these we didn't know the outcome until recently when the spreadsheets were released to us. That's why we asked for the extension. Back, I don't know. He did come and say he wanted to. We spoke.
When was that?
I would say a month or two. We didn't know the outcome of these, half of these. Like I said, we waited for the spreadsheets. So that's why we asked for the extension.
The officer was well aware he had union representation here and here when he got the written warning. So to me, the union was notified and they were aware of that written warning when he was issued it back in March. So I believe it's untimely. I didn't see the grievance you have before you, but I believe it's untimely based on that. But it's the board's decision.
That's the only question I have, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Can anybody hear me? Because everybody's frozen.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so what's the board's pleasure? Do you want to act on this tonight, or do you want to hold off till our next meeting? I'm going to ask you, Dave.
I didn't take myself off of mute. I think there's too much. Yeah, I had to take myself off of mute. Based on all the emotion that's going on here, I think we should push this back or table this till next month.
How about you, Tom?
Yes, but I think one thing we're gonna have to address is how these accidents are handled from here on out, because I think there seems to be some confusion. Just so I'm clear, what kind of I envision is a simple accident like this. I don't think we don't need the internal affairs investigation. However, when there's damage to a vehicle and there needs to be some type of corrective action, I think we put an evaluation in order in process for that. So to me, I would see an evaluation that says needs improvement on driving. And in 6 months, if you have no issue, your evaluation is gone. And I think it eliminates this grievance process and having to go through this. And I think it saves work on everybody's end from having to create an internal affairs. Just my thoughts on it. So.
Hey, John, how do you feel?
I would have to agree.
John Duke.
I'm going to agree with Dave and put this off until next month. I would also like, could we see when the other incident was, like the date and time? Because I don't remember seeing that on my end. So was that before this board took over or right around the same time? Because I was unfamiliar with his other accident. So doesn't have to be tonight, but for next month, if we could have that information available.
Chief, could you give them that information for next meeting?
I'll give it to you right now. It does IA 19-11. This is from the spreadsheet I submitted to the board. It says 8/3/2019. Officer Christopher Mara, MVA, damage to car number 4. He was given a counseling session and a memo in regard to that incident, which we felt it was fair. And obviously, another accident within a short period of time and then damage to the vehicle. I feel this is more than sufficient. You know, when we talk about, you know, the last 2 to 3 weeks, it's been in the news more than ever, police officer accountability. And that's kind of my take on it. You know, he shouldn't get a free pass. It should be a written warning. At his request, that comes out after a period of time. So it doesn't stay in his file forever, but that's upon his request. So that's contractual.
Kyle, how do you feel? Want to hold off till next meeting or act on tonight?
I don't think I have much of a choice.
Yes, you do.
No, we can hold off till next meeting. I just had those questions. It just, you know.
Okay.
It is what it is.
Could I have a motion to table this matter to the next meeting? Table grievance number 2005, Christopher Mara.
So moved.
Motion by Dave. Do I have a second?
John, I'll second it.
Second by John, or second. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? So carried. Thank you. Okay, grievance number 2004. This is discipline for, who is it? Oh, Dave Pratt, Commander Pratt. He received a 2-day suspension with the grievance says it's without cause. Dave Pratt is not grieving this. The union is grieving this. Dave Pratt, at that time, did not want to grieve this, but the union has a right to grieve it. So what's the board's pleasure on this one?
I say we leave it as it is.
I think what I would like to do is maybe table all 3 of these grievances to our next meeting so that we all can review them again because we just got them. How's the board feel about that?
I agree.
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Okay, could I have a motion to,
Just for the record, will you name the third one?
yep, I'm trying to find it. Got it here somewhere. So many grievances. I don't know where the third one is. I can't locate it.
It's Jasmine Dita 220-03.
Oh, yeah, that's a grievance concerning her locker was unlocked and her weapon was in an unlocked locker. My concern on that one is that even the duty manual says that the department has to furnish the keys the locks for all the lockers. The chief should have a master key to be allowed to go into the lockers. But if the lock was broken, the town is responsible to replace that lock, not the employee. At least that's what the duty manual says. Section 7.03 in the duty manual. I just want to ask a question. Who found the locker unlocked with the gun in it? Who found that? And I want the honest truth, because I heard a custodian found it and reported it to you, Chief. I don't know what the truth is, so you tell me tonight what the truth is, how that weapon was found in a girl's locker room by a custodian that isn't really full-time in the police department. We have a full-time one over the police department. Could you just explain that one to me?
Sure. The town custodians go from building to building. They're assigned various tasks in each and every building. I believe our custodian was either on vacation, or I have to look at the time frame. I don't have that in front of me. But to make a long story short, it was found by a custodian. We were asked to check for the building for damage, for water. I believe it was after one of the rainstorms. And we went in there, the custodian and we were checking the building, and then he observed it and he brought it to my attention. And when I turned and looked, yes, the locker was open and the weapon was in the locker, but the locker was opened and the weapon obviously was in full view at that point. So everything's laid out in the IA report, and so that's really the gist of what happened there. And so that was investigated. It was brought to me. We had discussion, and after that discussion, we really reviewed it. I took everything into consideration. And then we settled on I believe, a verbal warning, and that's all was really given. So, I mean, we're really filing a grievance over a verbal warning, I guess. So, the officer admitted that, hey, my locker was broke. It was broken for a period of time. Through our discussion, the officer basically stated that they were confident that the locker was closed and locked. When I saw it, the locker was not closed and locked. It was open in the open position. And so at that time, I seized the weapon. I brought it upstairs. I gave it to the deputy chief. I told the deputy chief, look into this incident and review it. And that's where that came into play. So I'm not sure what you're referring to as far as, what other story you heard on in here. I'm not sure of that, but.
No, what I heard was basically a custodian was down there in the girls' locker room.
That's correct.
That doesn't work there full time. He floats from one building to another building. I don't believe any custodian should be allowed in any secure area in the department. I believe the only one that should be allowed in that is the full-time employee. That's over there, that he's been there for a number of years. For over 10 years, I believe he's been over that police department. So 10 or 12 years. So I just have concerns with this certain custodian always finding things either in the police department or down at Public Works. So that's what my concern is. How come it's always him finding different things in different departments?
he is a full-time custodian, and he does bounce from building to building. He's one of the ones that just cleaned our whole building with the floor. So how they're assigned their task or what their assignments are, I can't vouch for that, but I know they're here quite frequently. All the custodians are here quite frequently, in and out, and help one another and work as a team. So I can't answer anything more as far as their assignments.
What's he looking in the girls' locker for?
The locker room?
Yeah, what's he looking in the locker for? I'm sure the locker door was closed.
He said, he brought it to my attention. He's like, "Oh, look, the locker's open." And when I turned, the locker was open. So
yeah.
So
Okay.
did we see if he opened it, or was it?
I did not
noticed until
I did not see it. I did not see him open it. No. So I would assume when we walked in, I was kind of behind him, and then I turned to the left, and then he was checking one part of the area, and I was checking the other. So. And he brought it to my attention. And when I turned and looked, the locker was open. I did not hear a locker open. I did not hear, so that's kind of the way it is.
Okay.
It's all laid out in the report. So
I have a question. I had heard, secondhand that he wasn't alone, but it was somebody else, Chief, before you came in. He brought somebody else into the girls' locker room. Is that correct?
I can't vouch for that. When we were checking the building, we were together. We were in the male's room and the male locker room, and then we went to the female locker room because that's what he was assigned to do, and I was with him. So
you and the custodian walked into the girls' locker room together?
Yes. Yep. Okay. Right behind each other. Yes. I believe he was in front of me, and I was kind of on the side and behind him, and then. He went basically straight ahead, and I went kind of to the left near the shower area that way and was looking around. Yes.
I just find it hard to believe that someone would leave a locker door wide open, whether there was a gun in there or not. It's just hard to believe. Whether there was a lock or not, that's another issue. But to leave a locker wide open is just I don't.
As far as the department supplying locks, we've been in this building since 2001. The department never supplied locks or keys. It was always the officer's individual, and we don't have any keys to any lockers. So,
Chief, read the duty manual 7.03. The town, you're supposed to supply locks, and you're supposed to have a master key for each one of those locks because the town's allowed to go into those lockers. At any time, and they're only supposed to have police equipment in there or police stuff in there, or else a change of clothes after their shift. I just read it again today. So, I mean, I don't know why we're not, certain things that seems like we follow in the duty manual and other things we just forget about.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
As I discussed earlier, I think policy, procedure, cleaning up that duty manual, as we discussed with earlier conversation, I think I'm in favor of that. So,
Chief,
that was. Go ahead.
During the course of the internal investigation, did anybody review any of the cameras within the building to see if somebody had gone in there prior to you going in with the janitor? Is there a chance that you didn't see him open that locker? Because I'm not sure. I mean, did he go in there with somebody else and then he went in there with you and just discovered this locker? Because that's what I thought I just heard.
That's the way I heard it.
Yeah, I mean, did anybody think to? I know the last IA we did was all about things we caught on camera. So, did anybody think to review the camera footage here?
I don't believe, I'm not sure if that was done or not. I have to review the report. It's been quite a while since that one went through. So I'm not going to misspeak. So I'm not sure if that was done or not.
Okay.
I would like to recommend that we table this one also to the next meeting because we have to find out, the chief has to review the footage of the camera to see what happened. Just hard for me to visualize an officer leaving the locker open, even if the lock was broken, why the door was wide open. I can't believe that happened. I just can't believe that. But possibly could have happened. But I'd like to make a recommendation. We table this one too until the next meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Dave,
Let me rephrase that. I'd like to make a motion, all three get tabled till next month.
okay, thank you.
I'll second that. John.
Second by John, discussion. Everybody's frozen up on me, so if there is discussion, just speak up, okay? I don't know why everybody's frozen. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I got some discussion, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay, Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
Listen, I don't know if anybody's uncomfortable discussing these. I understand the union has a right to file a grievance on this. I understand, but I look at it, this isn't an institutional grievance where it affects, a lot of members of the department. This is kind of affecting certain individuals. And, it seems like they were all right with the punishment that was handed out months ago. And now we're discussing it without them even being present here to say whether they want us discussing this or not. And they didn't even have a choice whether it went public. I'm not even sure these members would agree with that. They wanted it public. So, I'm not sure how I feel about this, discussing this farther, I would like to hear from the officers themselves at the next meeting, whether we should be even diving into this,
And that's what we'll do for the next meeting, Tom, is that we'll invite each one of the officers at their discretion if they want to be here at the meeting and so forth. The union filed the grievances on behalf of the officers, so that's why they weren't asked to be here. The union was going to represent them. So, but I will go forward and make sure that each of the officers are told that they will be discussed at our next meeting on the grievances. And if they want to show up, they could show up and have an open session if they so choose.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, so carried. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Mr.
Yes.
Chair, you have a question in the field.
Yes.
Yes, going back on the videos, I don't know if Detective Metasovich can answer it. I don't think they go back that far to when the incident occurred.
The videos?
Yeah, I don't think the videos go back that far. So you're
Well,
not going to get.
for that IA, I'm pretty sure that officer's on right now. So rather than having to try to figure out if the cameras work or not, we can ask that officer now if she wants to grieve it or not. Is that acceptable?
What I'm saying is the video is not
I
good.
understand. No, I understand what you're saying. The video might go back.
I
might not
wanted
record
to bring that up also. There's only a certain amount of time that the video could be captured, otherwise it gets written over. So we're way past that time frame. If it wasn't done, if we don't have it on file, there's no way, Chair, I could review that to see if it was done or not. So
And going back to my original,
I will check the file.
I asked it. I was just asking if the video was reviewed to show.
No, I know that.
Yeah, that's all I was
No,
asking.
I know what you were asking, but then the chair said for me to go back and review it. I won't be able to review it because we're past the time frames if it wasn't already saved, is what I'm saying.
All right.
Just to clarify to the board.
I've got to say this though, if that video was not reviewed for accuracy, shame on us, because if we had the technology to get to the truth and we didn't utilize it, something doesn't smell right.
Okay, the motion was passed. That we're tabling those three grievances to the next meeting.
The video only would catch the hallway. The video would not catch inside the locker room. You can't have video inside locker room. So, even if someone went in and out, that doesn't mean that locker. They might have seen that locker open or maybe just didn't do anything about it. So, that's not really going to prove anything, is what I'm saying. The incident's inside the locker room, not in the hallway where the video, where the camera could be.
Okay. Okay, moving on. Executive session, we have 2 union grievances. And then we have discuss personnel with the chief. Like a motion to go in executive session. First, I'm going to ask the 2 officers, would you like to be in open session? Michael Jasmine and Joe Manisovich. Where's
Mr.
Joe?
Chairman, are you going to have both of us together?
No, one at a time.
I request for the time frame that you're going on right now and sympathy to the time it is right now. You could have us both. I would waive my right together to invite Detective Jasmine at the same time.
Yeah, if both of you would like to come in at the same time, you're more than welcome to.
Sure.
I agree with that, Board.
I'd also request Tony Bento and John Oskowski.
Okay.
And I the same.
And who?
Tony Bento and John Oskowski.
Right, and we're
And
going to have
Detective,
our attorney, Brian Leclerc, come in with us. Now, you don't want an open session, correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, we're going to go in executive session with all the board members to discuss and take possible action after executive session on 2 grievances, one by Detective Manasovich and one by Detective Jasmine. And then after that, we will stay in executive session to discuss personnel with the chief. All members of the board will be in executive session. The union president, the union attorney, and also the town attorney will be in executive session this time. Could I have a motion going to executive session at 9:49?
Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, you're going to go into executive session, come out of executive session, and then go back in for the chief on that matter.
Yes.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah. I probably didn't say it that way, but I'm glad you understood it that way.
I'll make the motion to go into executive session.
Motion by Dave.
second.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
does Bob Rinaldi have to hang around the rest of the night?
No. No.
Hi, Bob.
Kind of like looking at him.
Okay,
Just
do I
looking
have
up,
a
Bob.
second? You got to speak up because you're all frozen on me.
This is Kyle. I second it.
Second by Kyle. That's to go in executive session to discuss the 2 union grievances, one against Detective Jasmine and one against Detective Manasovich, with the union president, union attorney, and the town attorney, and all board members. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention, so carried. Thank you very much.
All right, recording's on. I'm adding people in right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, could I have a motion and state your name for the record so Caroline could I have a motion come out of executive
John
session?
Duke, I make a motion, we come out of
10:04.
executive session.
Who made that motion?
John Duke.
I'll second
John
it.
Duke?
Kyle.
Kyle, second that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Thank you very much. Okay, the first grievance, since it's just a executive session, 2 union grievances, and personnel chief, the 2 union grievances, we have to first place on the table the 2 union grievances so that we could act on and take possible action. So could I have a motion to place on the table Joseph Manasovich's grievance 2002 and Michael Jasmine's grievance 2001 and to take action?
So moved.
Motion by Dave,
Second, John Duke.
second by John. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, so carried. Thank you very much. Okay, now could I have a motion, take an action, could I have a motion, we're gonna do 2 separate motions. Could I have a motion on Joseph Manasovich grievance 2002 with the written warning that he was issued by the chief? Could I have a motion? I will state the motion. The motion we will sustain, is it, Brian?
Sustain, S-U-S-T-A-I-N.
Sustain the grievance because it was an improper IA conducted against him.
I'll make that motion.
Motion, John Duke. Do I have a second?
I'll second. I was on mute. Sorry.
Second, Dave Bitzel. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, oppose? Abstention, so carried. Okay. Could I have a motion on Michael Jasmine, grievance number 2001, the same wording as Joseph Manasovich?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Dave Bitzel,
John Duke, second.
second by John Duke. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Abstention, so carried, 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to have to sign these grievances. I'll bring them over to Caroline's office tomorrow, and the union could pick it up so they get a copy of the signed step 2 grievance by the board, okay? Okay, John?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, next on the agenda is personnel concerning the chief of police. The only ones that will go in executive session are the board members and the chief of police, and I believe our attorney would be in there too, Brian.
Correct.
Okay, could I have a motion going executive session this time at 10:08?
John Duke, I'll make the motion. We go into executive session.
Motion by John Duke,
Second.
second by Dave Bitzel. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, so carried. Okay, Kyle,